retire. I couldn't think of any reason why she shouldn't be allowed to do that after 35 years. So she's now retired. I am not. As I have always said, if you enlist my services to represent you, that's who you get. So if you want me, you're in luck. If I agree to represent you, I'll be the person standing by your side when you're standing in a courtroom or hearing room.
So, folks, again, Jim Freeman, now associated with O'Donnell, Weiss & Mattei here in Phoenixville. Your life, your business, your law firm. Please contact us at 610-917-9347. Jim, thank you. Folks, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
For more than 50 years, Pottstown Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery has served its community with expert dental care, offering patients dental implants and a full menu of procedures for many types of dental problems, including bone grafting, wisdom teeth, impacted canines, facial trauma, jaw surgery, oral pathology, TMJ disorders, and sleep apnea. Get the smile you've always wanted. Contact Pottstown Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery today.
Just down the street, there's a hardware store with great tools, products,
and expert advice.
We've got everything you need because we know the community
and we know our customers.
So next time you have a home improvement project,
drop by
your local True Value hardware store. True Value.
Start right.
Start here.
Your True Value expert is A.D. Moyer in Gilbertsville and Pottstown. On the web at admoyer.com.
We have 90, now 100 on it, able to make it 10, able to make it 120, 120, 30 on it, able to make it 40, now 50, now 60, now 70, now 80, now 90, 90 on it, able to make it 200, 210, 10, able to make it 210, anybody else at 210, sold your way 200. Hi, I'm Warren Momberg. I'm an auctioneer and certified appraiser. Have you ever had or been to an auction? They can be fun, exciting, and educational. When most people need my services, they are either in charge of a family member's estate or are considering moving or downsizing. If you're in a situation that you're not sure what to do with it all and how to do it, call me and I'll be happy to meet with you for free and show you how the auction method of marketing will work for you. Together, we will get the job done. Call me today, Arn Momberg, auctioneer appraiser, at area code 610-845-2594. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, this car's been around for a while, but it's running great. So am I, Terry Musser. I've been around for a while, and I'm running great. So if you want some experience, somebody that's been there and done that, but still has the energy, you call me. Because I have a team of people, we have all of the networking you need, and we have the knowledge. And you just can't buy that. But you'll get it when you choose Terry Musser and his team. Give us a call. You'll be glad you did. Happy trails.
Hey, even when you're dealing with real estate, you need a tough guy for you. So, I'm your man. You're going to sell your house? I dare you not to call Terry Musser, because I'm going to do everything I can. I dare you to knock this off. But seriously, we are sensitive to your needs. I've sold hundreds of homes. We have all the right tools, advertising, PCTV, Zillow, Trulia, ColdWellBanker.com. So you call me. I'll do what it takes, and you have my personal guarantee. I dare you.
Hey everybody, Terry Musser. I'm back and want to talk to you about your house. It's a big investment. You've put a lot into it. And you need a real professional. Hey, when the lights go out, you need an electrician. You don't want to do it yourself. Same thing happens. Carpentry, you know, you need a real pro. You need to get yourself a carpenter. And when you have a real emergency, that's when you want to call Terry Musser. I'm here to help you with all your needs. No plumbing needs, though. That's when you need the plumber. But for your real estate needs, it's a big investment. I have all the tools of the trade. So we'll measure your house. I have an iPhone. In fact, probably one of my customers will call me now. Hi, this is Terry. Oh, yes. I can be over on Sunday. That's not a problem. But I'm busy right now, so I'll get back to you, and I look forward to meeting you. We have the iPhone. We have an iPad. We use all the technology, Realtor.com, Trulia, Zillow. 26 years of experience, still passionate. So I want you to call me, Terry Musser. Love to work you. Small house, big house, any house. Give me a call, and you'll get my personal guarantee of great customer service. Thank you.
Just down the street, there's a hardware store with great tools, products,
and expert advice.
We've got everything you need
because we know the community
and we know our customers.
So next time you have a home improvement project,
drop by
your local True Value hardware store. True Value.
Start right.
Start here.
Your True Value expert is A.D. Moyer in Gilbertsville and Pottstown. On the web at admoyer.com.
For more than 50 years, Pottstown Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery has served its community with expert dental care, offering patients dental implants and a full menu of procedures for many types of dental problems, including bone grafting, wisdom teeth, impacted canines, facial trauma, jaw surgery, oral pathology, TMJ disorders, and sleep apnea. Get the smile you've always wanted. Contact Pottstown Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery today.
Wayne Klein of Klein Transportation is committed to providing superior quality vehicles for passengers and employees. He invites you to board our new 2014 MCI model J4500. The stylish cabin reflects the quality of Klein service that you have come to know and expect. Comfortable seats with first-class legroom and LED lit interiors create now a sense of drama and elegance. We invite you to join us on board our new MCI J4500 to the destination of your choice. We offer group charters and travel planning assistance for group leaders. Klein Tours, pre-planned one-day trips, and overnight excursions for individuals or small groups. And of course, our regularly scheduled Pennsylvania or Atlantic City casino trips. Our friendly and helpful staff is available to assist you simply by calling 1-800-451-6700 or get a quick quote online at KleinTransportation.com. Half the fun is getting there. Welcome aboard. Now, before you throw it out, before you flush it down, before you blow it up, before you screw it up, before you call North End Computers, the area's premier or biggest little computer store and service center. With a large inventory of computer parts and repair services done right on site, they will quickly get your computer up and running. For over 23 years, their experienced technicians have been servicing computers in the Tri-County area. On-site service for your home or office can fix all your internet and networking problems. It's North End Computers for all your new and used desktops, laptop, notebooks, and tablet needs. Remember, don't wait till your hair's pulled out. Call your user-friendly computer store, North End Computers, today.
Hey everybody, Terry Musser. I'm back and want to talk to you about your house. It's a big investment. You've put a lot into it. and you need a real professional. Hey, when the lights go out, you need an electrician. You don't want to do it yourself. Same thing happens. Carpentry, you know, you need a real pro. You need to get yourself a carpenter. And when you have a real emergency, that's when you want to call Terry Musser. I'm here to help you with all your needs. No plumbing needs, though. That's when you need the plumber. But for your real estate needs, it's a big investment. I have all the tools of the trade. So we'll measure your house. I have an iPhone. In fact, probably one of my customers will call me now. Hi, this is Terry. Oh, yes. I can be over on Sunday. That's not a problem. But I'm busy right now, so I'll get back to you, and I look forward to meeting you. We have the iPhone. We have an iPad. We use all the technology, Realtor.com, Trulia, Zillow. 26 years of experience, still passionate. So I want you to call me, Terry Musser. Love to work you. Small house, big house, any house. Give me a call, and you'll get my personal guarantee of great customer service. Thank you.
So I want to take this opportunity just to let you know that Chestnut Knoll at Home has 2 offices, one in Phoenixville and one in Gilbertsville. We offer part-time and full-time positions. We have a 401k program that goes into effect 1 year after your employment. We also offer paid time off. We offer flexibility of hours and the fact that you're out there making a difference in someone's life.
The feeling that they matter in this world, especially the elderly. I think they're so overlooked sometimes, and if they don't have family members, and you might be the only person that touched their life that day with a smile.
Flexibility is great because I'm a college student. I'm meant to be an RN, and they work around my schedule really well. I give them enough time to when it's going to change, and they put in for me. I have no problems. And that's a great aspect to the company as well.
Single mom, so I could still see their sports, still be there for dinner, still be around on the weekends, still pick up a couple hours here and there, but ultimately ended up just making this is what I was supposed to do, work in home care.
So I want to take this opportunity just to let you know that Chestnut Knoll at Home has 2 offices, one in Phoenixville and one in Gilbertsville. We offer part-time and full-time positions. We have a 401k program that goes into effect 1 year after your employment. We also offer paid time off. We offer flexibility of hours and the fact that you're out there making a difference in someone's life.
The feeling that they matter in this world, especially the elderly. I think they're so overlooked sometimes, and if they don't have family members, and you might be the only person that touched their life that day with a smile.
Flexibility is great because I'm a college student. I'm meant to be an RN, and they work around my schedule really well. I give them enough time to when it's going to change, and they put in for me. I have no problems, and that's a great aspect to the company as well.
Single mom, so I could still see their sports, still be there for dinner, still be around on the weekends, still pick up a couple hours here and there, but ultimately ended up just making this is what I was supposed to do, work in home care.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this edition of Health Talk. Today we have the privilege of having Chief Kevin McKeon on with us from New Hanover Police Department. He's been in service for 35 years, and what we are doing today is we're looking at people wearing their seatbelts at this point. Okay, we know that the holiday season is coming up here in about a week, and we know that it's very important for people to wear their seatbelts at this point. So, Chief, what is the law regarding seatbelt use?
Everybody has to wear one.
Okay.
Period.
Nobody, so there's no exceptions, nothing like that. 18 years, older and down, everybody has to wear it.
Everybody has to wear the safety belt.
Great. So when we're looking at that, what are some of the number one reasons that you see that people make excuses for not wearing the belts?
Well, some are overweight and it's restrictive.
Sure.
Some are even with me with all this gear on.
Right.
Okay. It's very restrictive, but we have to wear them, and we do wear them.
Sure.
But there are some that just don't want to wear them because they don't like them.
And one of the things I see, especially in practice here, is that people say they're always fearful of being trapped in a vehicle. Do you come across that?
We do have people that, when we have major accidents, that have become trapped. But those people wearing the safety belts, it helps them. Because they're not being thrown or they're not being ejected from the vehicle. That safety belt has saved more lives
Absolutely.
Than anything in that car. Is you look at just the statistics, and I know that you know the statistics on accidents. It's we as a police department, we with the state, with Pennsylvania State, gives us money for click it and ticket.
Sure.
And we run speed checkpoints, whatever you want to call them. And what we do is we look for people that are not have their safety belt on.
Absolutely. So I know some of the stats are very interesting. I personally was in an accident last year and had the seatbelt on, and it was tremendous on what it was able to do for me. But I know that right now what we're looking at is that in the state of Pennsylvania, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but only 84% voluntarily buckle up when the national average sits at 88%. And we know that for every 1% increase of use, so going from 84 to 85%, can save up to 12 lives a year. True?
Absolutely. But we are seeing a rise in people wearing safety belts in Pennsylvania. When I first started here in New Hanover, and we started to click it and ticket, we were getting a lot of citations.
High percentage.
Oh, totally. We were getting 10, 15. Now we're seeing about, when we run a speed check, we're looking at maybe 5, 4.
Wow.
So we're getting the message out, and this program right here is getting the message out. It's a great thing.
Hello, Susan. I'm Dr. Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic. I see you're wearing your seatbelt today.
Yes, I am.
That is excellent. We have a busy holiday season coming up here next week, so we're just trying to make sure we have an awareness for people to wear their seatbelts.
Susan, thank you very much for with your safety belt on, and I see that your children are in their child safety seats too. I want to thank you very much. We have so many accidents out there that so many people are getting hurt, and wearing your safety belt really cuts down on injuries. So thank you very much. And Doc, you're going to...
There you go. So here you go. Here's 2 gifts, and we also gave you the $10 gift card as well. So continue to wear your seatbelts. It reduces the chances for permanent injury and makes your lives that much safer.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too.
Hi, I'm just really happy that you got your safety belt on today. Do you know that we have so many accidents in New Hanover Township, and one of my main goals when I came here was to cut down on the accidents and keep people safe. And one of the best things in an accident is to have your safety belt on, and it just cuts down on your injuries. But I really appreciate that, and it's great. And it's the law, so that's great.
They say a 1% increase in use of safety belts saves 12 lives a year. So just keep that in mind. So again, continue to wear your seatbelt, and make sure that's the most voluntary thing that you can do. That will absolutely create longevity for you. All right? Thank you. Taylor, we see you're wearing your seatbelt today. What we're doing today is we're trying to create more of a public awareness for the fact that you should wear your seatbelts. We know that every 1% that we increase our seatbelt use, we save 12 lives a year at this point. So again, congratulations on that. We want to give you this. This is from
thank you.
Chiropractic. This is a shirt.
Wow, thank you.
Here you go, sir.
Mr. Howard, thank you very much for wearing your safety belt. we're trying to do is safety in New Hanover Township, and what we're looking for is people to wear their safety belts.
So what we're doing is we're trying to create a community awareness of wearing your seatbelt, so when the holiday weekend comes up, that we can actually have people who save lives, okay? So we know that in Pennsylvania, about 84% of the people voluntarily wear their belts, and that's down under the average of the national average of 87 or 88%. So we want to make sure that people are continuing to wear their belts. For every 1% increase, we see 12 lives saved each and every year. Sir.
Hi, I'm Chief Kevin McEwen of New Hanover Township. Yes, I just want to thank you very much for wearing your safety belt. And in this township, that's what our main thing is safety. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sylvester, and we caught you in the act of wearing your seatbelt. Congratulations to you. We know the busy holiday season is coming up here next week, so this is what we're really trying to do, is save lives, reduce injuries, and reduce costs associated with injuries as well, okay? So again, we know that a 1% increase in using safety seatbelts saves 12 lives a year. So keep that in mind as you continue to wear it and be an example for everybody else. Chief?
Hi, my name is Kevin McEwen. I'm the Chief of Police in New Hanover Township. I just want to thank you very much for wearing your safety belt. It cuts down on injuries if they're ever in an accident. So thank you again for being safety conscious. And it's the law. So thanks.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sylvester. I see that you're wearing your seatbelts today.
Yes.
So we know that only 84% of Pennsylvanians wear their seatbelt, whereas compared to the national average, 88% wear it. So we know that a 1% increase in using your belts saves 12 lives a year. So again, we want to say congratulations to both of you wearing your belts and that type of thing. So again, we got the holiday season come up. Make sure you continue to wear it. And you also said you run for the fire company, right?
I do.
So you should know firsthand how important it is to wear that belt.
Yes.
Correct? So again, on this edition of Health Talk, we are so pleased to have you as an expert on here to give us your opinion and what you see out in the field, because that's more important than anything. When you're starting to see who's wearing them and who's not wearing them at this point, you start to get a good idea of what's going on and how the message is being effective or not being effective.
Yeah.
So
we did a good job today.
Absolutely. So again, with this, the purpose of this whole show is nothing more than this. We wanted to reduce the chances of death. We wanted to reduce the chances of injury. And last but not least, we want to reduce the downstream medical costs associated with auto accidents at this point. And the most simplest way and most effective way to do it is voluntarily buckle up. Good day and good health.
Welcome to As You Go, equipping hearts of people like you to win souls in everyday life. A time of sharpening the sword of the Spirit that fits into your life right where you are. Now join us and our host, Stan Huberfeld and Reverend Mitch Treisman.
All of this is part of his plan. Have no doubt all things were made by his hand. No one ever spoke like this man. No one ever spoke like this man. No one else can say but this man.
Good morning.
Boker Tov. Good morning. Let's start with our prayer, Stan. Let's do it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Father God, it's a great joy we come into your presence to the finished work of our Messiah, Jesus. What an honor it is to be here. It's good to be back in the studio. It's good to be back with Stan. Father, we pray that you'll take this time we spend together and mingle with faith of those that hear it, that those who observe this might be blessed by the things we discuss. Father, we don't even know where we're going to go. But you know, and you've blessed us and encouraged us and prepared us for this moment. And Father, we pray that this might be a challenging time, an encouraging time for all those who have an opportunity to see it. Thank you for it. In the Master's name, Messiah Yeshua, we pray. Amen.
Amen. You know, Mitch, I've had a scripture verse on my heart the last week or two. Let me just read it, and then maybe we can dialogue a little bit about it. It's from Matthew 7, starting in verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away with me, you evildoers.
Scary verse.
It is.
You know, it's funny. Everybody seems to know who that verse is talking about. Not me. Maybe you. I'm not sure. But, you know, Catholics think it's Protestants. Protestants are sure that it's Catholics. And every denomination we serve is referring to somebody else. But it's Scripture, and it's very scary passage of Scripture. Personally, let me just say that I think anybody who has made a profession of faith, and, well, out of the abundance of heart, the mouth speaks, has truly been converted by faith and repented, turned from self, turned to God, and has believed in the Lord Jesus, is saved. And I believe that salvation is a free gift. You can't work for it, earn for it. You can't pray for it. You can't pay for it. It's a gift of God, and God is not an Indian giver. He doesn't take gifts away.
Amen.
And we've been changed. We've been translated in the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. We became much more a part of the plan of God. We are inheritors. We are sons of God, and we're in the family of God. Baptized, regenerated, indwelt, sealed. And I believe that we are safe and secure. However, this is still scary in spite of all of that.
Amen. You know, there's the word here. There's a couple words here that jump out at me. It says many. Many will say to me on that day.
Well, we see this in the past, in other scripture. Wide is the path to destruction. Many. Straight and narrow is the way to righteousness, and few. So we know right away that many people are lost. But this scary thing here is that most of the people that I deal with who are unsaved, atheist, agnostic, non-religious people, they know they don't have a relationship with God.
Exactly.
They say, oh, I don't believe that way. I wish I could have faith. I'm a good person. I can work my way in. Whatever. But they know they're not believers, and they know they're not evangelicals, and they're not saved. This is obviously for the people who don't know. They seem to, Lord. They're getting caught surprised. Yeah. And that's the scary part.
What do you think are a couple of life job descriptions or life reality descriptions that fit the person of many? Like, church attendees, people who have their checklist of, well, I haven't done this and I haven't done this and I haven't, their checklist of which basically comes down to I'm a good person. And I think there's many people who feel that way.
They must. I don't know, Stan. It's hard to, obviously I don't have a clue as to how to identify who these many people are. They're working supernatural things in the name of God.
Right.
So I would, throughout, this is written back at the time of Jesus, and it referred to people from before him to after him who are, I see charlatans on TV. I see people selling miracle bliss prayer cards. I see people...
Super holy water.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And that's in the name of God. I don't know if this is a clue or not, but in Exodus chapter 20, we read the Ten Commandments there.
Right.
And it says, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now, the word take there means to bear or carry or bring forth. And interestingly, that we see here, they work miracles in God's name. And then we see over here, they were somehow emptying, carrying in an inappropriate way the name of God. So I think that the one connection between the two is they're not forgiven, not held guiltless, I don't know you, and it has to do with the ineffable name of God, the character, the person, God himself.
Right.
And so now who they are exactly and what they do, I don't know, but they're not, it seems like religious people for sure.
I had a story just came my way recently from a woman who took our training class on evangelism. And so she was out on a prayer walk, which was a good thing because she was abiding.
6 minutes and 10 seconds before you mention your classes. That's the longest you've ever gone. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
Well, so few people actually graduate. See, that's the problem. She's out on a prayer walk, and she's abiding, which is a good thing. Just talking with God, hanging out with her best friend. And she gets cold. So she goes into the community room in her community there just to warm up because she was cold. And she sees a man sitting there by himself. So now she decides, okay, I'm going to be intentional. She walks over to him and strikes up a conversation. Hi, hello, how are you? Introduces herself. 10 minutes later, the man is accepting Christ as his Lord and Savior.
Hallelujah.
It's like, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So she calls me up and starts telling me this whole story. And then she says, two things. First off is the man has gone to church his whole life, but never realized what it meant to have a personal relationship with God through the finished work of Christ on the cross. You know, payment of sin, redemption, Lord of my life. And she said, but I have one more question. I said, what's that? She said, did I do it right? I said, what do you mean, did you do it right? Did you talk about sin and the payment of sin and Christ went to the cross, raised from the dead, and now he's going to be on the throne of your life as Lord of your life? She said, yeah, I covered all those things. I said, well, then that's it, because that's the Holy Spirit showing up doing that which only he can do. I can't do it. You can't do it.
She missed point 3. Go back, take the guy, have him repray because she missed point 3. No, it's not a formula. Right. It's not filling in all the dots. It's not answering all the questions. Something comes upon a person when they hear and believe the word of God. The Ruach HaKadosh, the Holy Spirit, comes upon them, translate them, converts them, right. And all we can do is be a testimony, be a witness.
Exactly.
I know the Bible says he that winneth souls is wise, but we're not really in the business of soul winning. We're in the business of witnessing and testifying, making disciples, and God does the work. And all we can do is plant the seed.
Right, so plant the seed and water.
Yeah.
And I could water your seeds or vice versa, or somebody that was here yesterday and we didn't even know they were here.
Remember, now I'm trying to get support, so don't do too much work. Make sure the credit comes back so my supporters can be encouraged. But go ahead. That was 11 before I mentioned my... one of the things here, I look at these people and the scariness of being caught off guard. Can you imagine the horror of believing yourself to be in a relationship with the living God and discovering that you're not? And it's a frightening, frightening thing. And one of the things I notice about these people is their heart attitude. They said, Lord, Lord, didn't I do this? And didn't I do that? And didn't we do this? Didn't we do that? And when I encounter the presence of the living God in prayer, or I see him in other manifestations, not compare myself, but the 24 elders of the book of Acts, they're the clumsiest people on the planet. All they do is fall down. They see God, they fall down. They hear God, they fall down. They hear the voice, the thunder, and they fall on their faces. And they fall on their face. And it seems to me that when we come close to God, the last thing we want to do is lift up myself. Hey, God, look at me. No. I'm on my face. I'm prostrate before the Lord. And I say, oh, God, please, thank you for your love. Thank you for your forgiveness. I'm not worthy. And it's a humble attitude. It's meekness. It's brokenness. And these guys have a haughtiness and an arrogance. So that's one thing I see is different between us and those people is they're lifting up their good works. I'm burying myself under the ground, under the dust cover.
I had somebody explain it to me this way just recently. Some people come to God with the idea that I'm a pretty good person. Now, I know I got a few problems, so I'm here for a tune-up. But I'm not here for a tune-up. I'm here for a total overhaul.
Amen.
I bring nothing to the table.
Exactly.
Whatever I have that's good, it's because God gave it to me.
Amen.
And he's cleaned it up. He's changed me. He's changed my heart. He's changed who I am. That's the only goodness I have, and it's in Christ. So I'm not here for a tune-up. I'm here for a complete makeover.
Amen. I'd also like to talk about the fact that one of the encouraging things if you want to know for sure that your relationship with God is genuine, share it. Share it. Because if you have nobody behind you following you, it's hard to be certain that you're following God. But from the very beginning, the people of God were always winning souls. Abraham was left Ur of the Chaldees, went to a place called Haran.
Right.
Actually, Terach left there, went to Haran. And then God said to Abraham, some 60 years later, get thee out of thy country, kindred, and father's house, and go to a land I will show thee. Can you imagine this kind of witness? Abraham said, look, Tuesday morning, we're leaving the riverside, leaving the schools, leaving the place of education, leaving the place of civilization, and going into a wilderness to follow the living and true God. And Abraham got souls. He gathered souls in Haran.
Right.
People got up, sold their houses, picked up pitchforks, tents, and shovels, and went into the wilderness to follow Abraham as he followed God. I say, I can't get people to raise their hand. Now, how many people want to place their faith in Jesus? Nobody raises their hand. This guy asked people to leave their homes and follow him as he followed God. But from the very beginning, believers who followed God had people following them.
Yeah. You mentioned the verse earlier about the abundance of your heart.
Amen.
You know, and from that abundance is what comes out of your mouth.
Out of the mouth speaks,
right.
Yeah.
And so, if I have organized religion in my heart, and I have my theology in my heart and my doctrine, then I have a rule book. But
Amen.
If I have a relationship with the living God based on his love for me,
let me introduce you to my buddy.
Let me introduce you to my best friend who
Amen.
has totally turned my life around.
Amen.
So
Amen.
let's get into that a little more after we come back from break. But
I
think that's a winning direction.
Can do. God bless.
So you accepted Jesus and your sins are forgiven. You go to church. You read the Bible, sometimes. You say peace be with you when you greet other believers. However, isn't there more to being a Christian? Jesus challenged all Christians. As you go, make disciples of all nations. How effective are you at sharing the word of Jesus Christ with others? Tune in to As You Go with Stan and Mitch, sponsored by 1 Thessalonians 3:2, to learn how you can more effectively share your testimony to bring more hearts to Christ.
We were talking before break about this personal relationship and how did this come to be? I would like to read a couple scriptures here from John 15, verses 16 and 17. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. Then the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name, and this is my command, love each other. So I know God loves us, and I think most people tend to think, well, okay, God loves me. So that is somewhat set, but we were called to him for a purpose. This just wasn't some random happening where you get your membership card and then you go on cruise control. And the purpose was for us to then share that love with other people, which means opening our mouth, telling them what we believe, telling them what God has done for us in our lives so that they can be blessed too.
Amen. We were talking about following somebody as people follow us. Actually, my son was preaching on Sunday, and I was listening to his message, which is rare, and he shared from Philippians about following, and he said, brethren, in verse chapter 3 or 17, be followers together of me, and mark them for example as those who walk for us as an example. And many walk as according to the prince of the power of the air, many walk following other examples. And I was thinking of this thing where it talks about obey them and watch care over your soul and follow their example. And we have examples of godly people who follow the Messiah, who follow Christ, and we should be following them as they follow Christ. And think about this thing about following. Abraham had people followed him as he went with a purpose. And this whole idea of following, our Messiah told us to go throughout the world. As you go, make disciples. Teach them to observe all things. Following. Paul says, the things you've heard of me, saying, faithful men, that they might teach others also. Moses laid his hands on Joshua, and each succeeding generation laying their hands on another generation, keeping the word going, keeping the faith going, keeping the traditions going. But we people, as a nature, are followers. Little babies, you do this, And the baby does that. And the babies learn to talk and learn to crawl and learn to walk. As they observe us, they pick up the patterning of the next generation. We're imitators. We love to be part of the crowd. We like the fads, jeans, shirts. I don't want to be the only one wearing, if everybody was wearing a tie, I'm putting a tie on. We try to be normal. We try to be acceptable. And Ben said a very interesting statement. He said, be very, very aware of the people you're aware of. Be very, very know or observe the people you observe. There's people that we are influenced by, and we should pay attention to the people we pay attention to. And I think that sounds very scary, because we get into the church and nobody in church is witnessing. So we don't want to be the only one. So rather than following the biblical example, rather than taking the lead, going to our elders, going to our leaders and asking them to set the example, we fall into the model of, I'll invite people out to church, maybe, and then the pastor will preach the gospel, maybe, and somebody can say maybe. And we should be careful that we're paying attention to a model, and we should pay attention to people we pay attention to. Who's witnessing? Who's sharing? Who's following the biblical example of Jesus? Pay attention to them, and then people pay attention to us. As we follow him, have people follow us.
Exactly. See, now, the story that you just related is people following a model that's well-intended. It's not intended to do bad. It's intended to do good. But it's not biblical. See, the Bible says in Matthew 28, disciples make disciples.
Amen.
So I need to be discipled. I need to be mentored. I need to have accountability. I need to be in the Word. I need to be praying. I need to have quiet time on a regular basis. I need to do all the things that build me up as a disciple, so that I can then disciple somebody else, and they can then go and disciple somebody else and somebody else.
I'm always amazed at how enthusiastic a new believer is to share their faith. That's all they know. And they might only have two verses of Scripture. They want to share it. They want to tell people what they've done. They want to tell people what God has done. They want to share the change in their life. I'm thinking of the guy who's the demonized man in Mark, 50 demons, legion, and ran around cutting himself in the tombs. You had to chain him up, and he'd break the chains. Horrible. Messiah, Jesus, comes on the scene, heals the man, and now they see him sitting up, dressed in a sound mind. And he wants to follow the Lord. He said, Lord, I'll follow you. And he said, no, just go back to your cities and tell people what God has done. Tell them about the goodness of God. And later on, we read how when Jesus went to the Decapolis, the 10 cities, there was a great, the soil was ready because of the testimony of one man whose life has been changed. We see new believers excited and thrilled and enthralled to share their faith. I remember when my son Ben was like maybe 7 years old. And Grandma came over, my mom, came over to the house and he started talking about Jesus. And my mother put him down hard. I don't want to hear that. And he was crushed. He thought she'd be as excited to hear about God and salvation that he was. And it greatly impacted his witness for the rest of his life. He's been scared and timid. Now, I'm saying he's not a good witness. I'm just saying that negative moment just scarred him. And people go out there and they share their faith, one rejection, one bad experience. I'm through with that. And the next thing you know, they don't want to share anymore. They don't want to talk anymore. And it's a scary thing to see how quickly we fall in a mold of being comfortable in church and not getting out of our comfort zone. And so be careful. Be very much aware of the people that you're aware of. Pay attention to people you pay attention to. Surround yourself with witnessing, sharing, exciting Christians who are excited about their faith, and then you'll be excited about your faith.
I don't want this to come off wrong, so let me start off by saying church is very important.
Amen.
Amen. I mean, we have great pastors. They're great teachers. For the most part, we are not short of good sermons. We got lots of good sermons.
I steal them all the time. I listen to 3.
Amen. 95% of my disciple walk is outside the four walls of the church. It's as I go. If you're going to school, it's at school. If you're going to work, it's at work. It's on the soccer field. It's at the supermarket. It's at the gas station. It's as I go, touching people in life, telling them about the love of God, and doing it in a way that's real and natural. It's not a formula. It's not a, come to my church and be like me. It's just loving them right where they are.
Witnessing as we go. I go to fishing holes. I go out there intentional and deliberate to go to a place where I can share my faith. That's why they pay me the big bucks. I'm a professional. But I was taking a fellow with me because I want to disciple people into the work. I want them to then come along and follow after me as I follow into the Lord, I would hope. And so I took him to one of my fishing holes. And it's a place whenever I've been there, there's always been one, two, or more very, very ultra-Orthodox families having a meal with their family there. And I sat down there and I waited for a few moments. And one is a family of four, two girls who are older, two little boys. One boy is about 6, and he had a bandage on his chin. He's wearing a kippah. The other boy was about 3 or younger because he didn't have the kippah. So I figured he hadn't had his first haircut yet. He's a little younger. And I was waiting for the boy who had the bandage on his chin to make eye contact with me. And he looked over at me and I said, "Did you get that scar, or that mark, because you, like Moshe Rabbeinu, picked up a hot coal and put it to your lips?" Now, that's a midrash. It didn't happen in the scriptures, but our Jewish families are familiar with that. And he smiled. His mom and dad started talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, and then they asked me about my faith, where I lived. And at the appropriate moment, I told them I was born and raised in a practicing conservative Jewish home. But I was 22 years old, came to realize that the Messiah is Yeshua. He's already come. Now, I was going to synagogue, and I felt good there, and I felt clean there. Outside of service, I was living like an atheist. God wasn't important. But in the service, I felt good and clean. Right. And then I went to a coffee house. The kids were preaching the gospel. And they showed me the things I experienced with the scriptures called sin and how Messiah was the solution to the sin problem. I placed my faith in God's solution. And Israel was a big difference, feeling clean and being cleansed. So feeling good about myself being declared righteous. Well, they were taken back significantly by my testimony.
Sure.
But didn't get up and walk away or anything. They asked me more questions. That was my prayer, that they would have an interest in me, that God would give me favor with them so I'd be able to open up to them. They asked me about my Brooklyn accent. They found I lived in Coatesville. It didn't match up. Ah, you mean Brooklyn? Oh, sure. I lived in Brooklyn, and I know what you want to know. Do I know Rabbi Schneerson? I'm at the right age. Did I ever meet him? Yes, I did meet him. And when I was about 16 years old, Rabbi Schneerson gave me $1. And I want you to know I invested that $1, and now I have $4, one for each of your children. Now, if you will take this $1 and let me bless them in the name of Yeshua, I would be so honored. Would you let me do that? And the dad thought for a moment and said, sure. And I could give $1 in Jesus' name. Cast out demons in Jesus' name, healed, I don't know. But is anybody going to get saved? I don't know. Did lives change? No miracles. But it's a little thought of act of kindness. And I think that's a seed plant. He needs another person who believes in Jesus. The next step. People praying, people witness, people sharing. We just keep on in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. Not showing forth the splendor of works and power. Just a gentle little, I care for you. And God loves you. God's changed me. God will change you. God's made me righteous. God's forgiven me. You can be declared righteous. You can be forgiven.
I know in the world we live in, there's a lot of industry, there's a lot of business, and they've done studies that if you averaged every business in the United States, it takes 7 touches to make a sale.
Is that right?
No matter what you're selling.
Is that
it's just
right?
On the average. Now, that's in the world of business. A similar thing is true with God. The number might not be 7, but there's a lot of touches required. And I have no way of knowing, nor do you or anyone else, where that person is on the timeline continuum of their life. Am I the first touch? Am I the 99th touch? It doesn't really matter. What matters is the love and the obedience.
You know, people say, how do you approach an ultra-Orthodox person or somebody wearing a kippah and somebody who's obviously Jewish. How do we start? What's the opening line? And I feel that if you have a little bit of love, it's not hard to go up to somebody and say, I want to thank you for wearing your yarmulke, for declaring your faith in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I believe in him too. That's an opening line. Now, if he asks you questions about your faith, share your testimony.
Sure.
If he doesn't, Zyke is in, thank you. And it's a start. It's a start. Right. And but there's always something we can say. If we love somebody enough and we're not concerned about what they think about us or what they think about God, you can find something in your heart to say, God bless you, good morning, Boker Tov, Hag Sameach, whatever.
I was given blood the other day, and I'm hanging out at the table where you get cookies and water afterwards, so I want to make sure that you don't pass out. And there was a teenage girl sitting there with a woolly hat that said Philadelphia Union. So I looked at her and I said, are you a soccer person? And she said, yeah. And, me being a soccer ref, we got in the conversation, and I was able to got into the conversation a little bit through soccer. The fact that she was waiting for her mom who was giving blood, I had just given blood. It was just a natural, everyday life event. It's not something you carry in your back pocket and you can walk around whacking people over the head with,
I beg your pardon. No,
believe in Jesus or you're going to hell.
By the way, I think it's fascinating that you're one of the few people that hang out at blood drives to get free juice and cookies, But he hasn't bought a meal in years, just goes from one blood drive to another drug.
And I got a Dunkin' Donuts coupon, too.
I admire that.
Which I gave to my wife, and she loved it. So it's just as you go. Look for something. I have a shirt just like that. I have a hat just like that. Oh, I see you're a Phillies fan. I see you're an Eagles fan. Look for a way to build a bridge of communication. Do it lovingly. Do it kindly. It's not a formula. And while I'm going horizontal, I'm praying without ceasing. I'm going north and south at the same time.
Amen. Worship the Lord without ceasing. Back to Matthew 7. These people who say, Lord, Lord, he said, depart from me, you workers, I never knew you. Developing an intimate personal relationship with living God, a relationship, not religion, not all kinds of works and rules, but knowing God. Every morning, get on your face, talk to him. Every morning, respond to him. Read his word. Let him speak to you, feed you, grow you, direct you. That relationship with God, then you can say, Lord, Lord, I love you. Thank you. As opposed to pointing to all kinds of reasons why you should be there. Thanking God for himself.
I'm not worthy, but I'm trying my best to be obedient.
Amen.
And that's what God's looking for.
Amen.
So God bless you all.
Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this edition of Health Talk. Today we are very honored to have Dr. Stacy Fitch, who's a rheumatologist. She's going to be talking about the condition called rheumatoid arthritis today. And one of the questions that we want to start off with today, Stacy, is what is a rheumatologist?
That's the question I get asked most often in the general public, and it's important because I think a lot of patients are very familiar with a heart doctor, a lung doctor,
Sure.
but a rheumatologist is not something you hear every day.
That is correct.
I'm a specialist that takes care of patients with autoimmune or connective tissue disease, but more specifically certain subtypes of arthritis that fall under that umbrella.
Sure.
In order to become a rheumatologist, you must complete 4 years of medical school,
Okay.
which I did at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Okay.
And you must complete an internal medicine residency with critical care background,
Sure.
which I did through PCOM and in Einstein
Mhm.
Medical Center. And then you complete a fellowship, which is either 2 years or 3 years, depending if you do clinical research.
Okay.
And I completed that at Thomas Jefferson University.
So you come very well equipped.
I hope so.
So with all that study and all the credentials that you have, one of the biggest things that we see from a disease standpoint is rheumatoid arthritis. What is rheumatoid arthritis?
Rheumatoid arthritis is under the subset of inflammatory arthritis.
Okay.
It is a very common arthritis that I see in my patient practice.
Sure.
And basically, patients will experience intense inflammation involving the small joints.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is your fingers, toes,
Sure.
wrists, ankles, shoulders, and the neck can be involved as well. It
Okay.
less often affects the spine and the lumbar spine.
Okay.
It, by nature, is very inflammatory and causes swelling of the linings of the joint,
Okay.
that therefore causes degradation of the cartilage,
Sure.
the bones, and actually can cause inflammation and swelling of the linings.
Gotcha. So one of the biggest things that we see, in our clinic as well, is arthritis itself. So what is the difference between just regular run-of-the-mill arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis?
It's an important distinction to
Sure.
make because they're two completely different entities.
Mhm.
Osteoarthritis, as I tease my patients, hopefully we'll all be here long enough to experience.
There you go.
It is a very common arthritis. It affects approximately 60% of the general population.
Okay.
Osteoarthritis means the cushions or the cartilage between the joints become degraded over time.
Sure.
Now, the patients that will be at risk for that, again, if you're overweight,
Mhm.
if you aging,
Sure.
so again, we all probably will experience
Sure.
this. Any joint that's had trauma,
Okay.
injury, if mom and dad had arthritis,
Mhm.
all these will promote cartilage degradation over time.
Sure.
Rheumatoid, on the other hand, is a more destructive arthritis, tends
Okay.
to affect the younger population.
Sure.
And there is a subset of arthritis that affects children as well, called juvenile idiopathic arthritis,
Okay.
which most people relate to juvenile rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
But the nomenclature has changed.
Okay.
But the subset of people that are affected are generally women and men of any various age type, and it makes up about 1/3 of my practice.
Wow. So when you're thinking about, you were kind of alluding to the early signs and symptoms of rheumatoid, what is the early signs and symptoms that you do typically see with a patient who has rheumatoid arthritis?
Rheumatoid arthritis can present in two ways.
Okay.
There are some patients who present with an abrupt onset,
Okay.
where they're feeling well, and within a very short period of time, a few days to a few weeks, can have intense swelling of the joints,
Mhm.
again, particularly the small joints.
Sure.
And then there's people that have a more insidious onset,
All
where
right.
they start noticing more pain, more stiffness, more swelling that occurs over a length of time.
Okay.
And what they find is they're taking more and more anti-inflammatories to
Mhm.
do the activities of daily living that they normally do. And then eventually it becomes quite explosive, where they realize, I need to see somebody about this. I'm
Sure.
taking anti-inflammatories every day to function.
Yes. So when you look at we'll say the prevalence or the incidence rate at this point, on the national level, I think there's 1.3 million people who are diagnosed annually with RA. I think it's attributable to 50,000 deaths per annual at this time. I mean, when you're looking at 1/3 of your practice being RA, do these kind of dovetail with what the nation's seeing as well?
Very much so. And I will tell you, patients don't always read the roll books.
Okay.
And there is some documentation that women are more common than men, but I would say in my practice it's 50-50. It's a
Okay.
fair game arthritis.
Sure, absolutely.
So you really have to scrutinize and not have gender bias in regards to interpretation and evaluation of a patient for rheumatoid arthritis.
So when we start to get into, like, if a patient presents to your office with signs and symptoms of RA, what is the typical workup for this to differentially diagnose between, regular arthritis, rheumatoid, and anything else like that? And then can you expand on anything like false negatives or anything like that, and how you have to
Absolutely.
differentially diagnose this?
The most important thing when you have someone in your office that you suspect has an inflammatory arthritis is a thorough history.
Sure.
And I tell patients all the time, what you tell me is the most important part of any piece of information I will obtain.
Sure.
80% of a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis will be made based on history and physical
Wow.
alone. So that is a very difficult thing to ask from a patient.
Sure.
People are not trained or taught how to explain pain and symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell them is, it's just like when you're a child
Sure.
and you're going to write an article.
Mhm.
They tell you, write the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Sure.
So when I'm interviewing a patient and trying to get the signs and symptoms, those are the things I want to know. Where's your pain? How long has it been there? And by the time we answer all those questions, I have a pretty good sense of where I stand with the patient.
Sure.
Family history becomes important, so
Okay.
the rest of the physical history becomes important, and then a joint assessment.
Okay.
I frequently have patients when I'm examining them, I am palpating their joints, and I'm checking
Sure.
for inflammation, warmth, and swelling.
Sure.
And they'll say, Dr. Fitch, what are you doing? And I
Exactly.
said, this is called a joint count. So as the doctor is doing that, they're taking a mental inventory of how many joints appear inflamed, how many are warm, and how many are tender, and then that goes into an actual document
Okay.
that gives us a joint score.
Okay.
After that, there is a serologic workup that needs to be conducted.
Sure.
I am known infamously, I think, for the blood monitoring that I do. In order to look for other differentials and other possibilities, I look at 3 buckets of information.
Okay.
I look at an inflammatory bucket of information, an immunologic basis of bucket of information, and then finally a metabolic bucket of information.
Wow.
So just to be brief,
Yeah.
so for inflammation, I would be looking for inflammatory markers, things called a sedimentation rate, CRP, rheumatoid factor, CCP, those type of things.
Sure.
And it would also in some genetic studies like
Okay.
HLA-B27.
Okay.
Under the immunologic aspect, I'm looking for ANA positivity, which is a immune test that looks at the blood. I'm looking for what's called extractable nuclear antigens.
Sure.
This is looking for antibody-specific disease states like lupus, vasculitis.
Sure.
For the metabolic portion, I'm looking at things like thyroid. I'm looking at hyperparathyroidism, vitamin deficiencies that may mimic an inflammatory condition. After the serologic workup is conducted, depending on how the patient presents, radiographic studies may be ordered.
Sure.
They would include x-rays, potentially of the hands, wrists, feet, and ankles for staging,
Okay.
and looking for joint damage, erosions. These are
Sure.
the bad words we don't like to
Yeah,
hear
absolutely.
from the radiologist. Sometimes bone scans are ordered to
Okay.
look for other inflammatory conditions, and it's a nice way to look at the whole body without x-raying individual parts. If it's a joint-specific area and there's an index of suspicion, at times an MRI with gadolinium will be ordered, attention to that joint space to look for particular joint damage and swelling that might be a little more esoteric and difficult to nail down.
Sure.
Once all that's collected, the patient is brought back for a follow-up interview. We do what's called an interval history to see what joint condition has prevailed since, how are they feeling.
Sure.
We review the data, we review the radiographic or any imaging at that time, and hopefully by that point you will have the diagnosis in a nice package for the patient.
Sure.
But it's important for people to understand there is no one true blood test for rheumatoid arthritis.
And I think that's sometimes where confusion lies.
Very much so.
Right.
And as we started this conversation, I said 80% of what I do is based on how articulate a person can explain to me what's happening and my physical exam.
Sure.
30% of the healthy population can have a positive rheumatoid factor. It's an acute phase reactant. It cleaves under stress or that the body can be under at any one given time.
Sure.
But patients with rheumatoid arthritis can also not produce rheumatoid factor or other antibodies. So the American College of Rheumatology came up with updated criteria in 2010. Which gives us a battery of questions and joint assessment of physical exam findings that if you meet the right number score that fulfills those criteria, then you can feel with most confidence that the patient does have rheumatoid, even if the laboratory studies are negative.
Wow. So with all that comprehensive exam, all that workup, history seems to be most vital, and still, then you're going to kind of dovetail that with the advanced diagnostics that you're going to do. So now you have a patient sitting in front of you that has been, we'll say, diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. What are the current treatments?
Well, there's some old school treatments if you have someone who's more mild, but I tend to be on the more aggressive side because the data in the literature over the last 10 years has really shown that the more aggressive you are in treating someone, the better the outcome.
Sure.
One of the first medications that's been around, it's been around a long time, and it's older than me, is methotrexate.
Sure.
It scares people often because if you Google it or check it on the internet, it's used by many different disciplines in medicine. But rheumatologists deal with disease-modified anti-rheumatic drugs, or DMARDs.
DMARDs, yeah.
So methotrexate in very small dosages has a very calming effect to the immune system on different proteins and inflammatory cell mediators. That's the starting point. If patients are monitored regularly, side effects can be avoided or dosages can be curtailed.
Sure.
What's exciting, as you and I have been out in practice since 1998, there's been a class of medications called biologics.
Okay.
These are protein blockers. And when I came out in practice, the conversation about biologics took me 5 minutes.
Sure.
Now it takes me about 45.
Wow.
There are probably 15 different variations of biologic molecules and how they're administered to patients. And basically, they're protein specific.
Okay.
They are designed to block one particular protein, and not to labor, but one example would be something that blocks TNF.
Sure.
TNF is a specific protein. There are proteins that block IL-6. There are IL-1 blockers. So this is a pretty exciting area. So that in the realm, since 1998 going forward, people should have to worry less about joint damage, disability, and have better function and quality of life.
Sure. Then brings us to the next component of treatment, infusion centers. And, where are they, what are they, and what do you do there?
Rheumatology is interesting in respect that we have many modalities of where we can treat patients.
Sure.
The biologic, which is targeted therapy, can be given subcutaneously.
Okay.
In essence, that means it's like giving yourself a medication as you would in an EpiPen.
Okay.
Some patients are not comfortable with that. Some insurance carriers would rather an infusion treatment. Well, basically, that's nothing more than an intravenous.
Okay.
If you've ever been in the hospital, in the emergency room, or had a procedure, an intravenous has been placed, and probably some IV fluids.
Sure.
Giving a medication that is a biologic is no different than that.
Okay.
It's done in a small setting, a cozy setting,
Sure.
with skilled RNs
Sure.
who are trained in mixing, vital sign monitoring. And essentially, any medication that does not require cardiac monitoring can be administered in an infusion center. And we're very fortunate because we have that on site in our practice.
Which is fantastic. It's just another tool and resource that we have locally in our community to deal with the rheumatoids and the autoimmune diseases as well. What if somebody decides not to treat their rheumatoid? Is there consequences to it? Is there anything that people should be aware of?
That's a great question because people get very focused these days on side effects.
Sure.
One of my goals as a rheumatologist is to say, listen, your disease has side effects. Untreated disease, particularly if it's moderate to severe, it's not just about the joints. It's not just about having joint pain. It's not just about taking ibuprofen or an anti-inflammatory to keep yourself functioning.
Sure.
This intense inflammation, it's a body that's in chaos, that's asking for control.
Sure.
Well, that chaos can affect other organ systems. Patients with inflammatory disease states of various kinds, whether it's rheumatoid or another subset, are at increased risk for coronary artery disease, heart attack, and stroke.
Sure.
Now, if you treat the disease, it doesn't mean you're eliminating those risk factors, but you are by far optimizing your risk factor profile to benefit your health.
Sure. Yeah. So, one of the things that I've seen very commonly when we've done this show is early intervention better than late intervention, or doesn't it matter?
Early intervention is always key. And since we have these wonderful medications now available to us, life can be changed.
Sure.
And although we are a side effect driven society, I tell my patients all the time, better living through chemistry. There's a reason we're living longer and healthier lives with more flexibility and more freedom and less disability because we have these available. So yes, you are improving your health overall if you recognize the problem, have good conversation with your rheumatologist. I think if you have someone in front of you who will make you feel like you're part of a team, that the fear of treatment should be lessened significantly once you've had that contact and you've had that dialogue. But by far, targeted therapy these days and tight control improves outcomes, and that's been proven over the last 15 years.
Which is fantastic. So if somebody has, some joint pains and that type of stuff, what should they do?
I think the biggest thing is to be in tune with it. All joint pain is not necessarily rheumatoid arthritis, but having the discussion early with your family physician that if it's a change in the nature of what you're used to on a day. We all have routine aches and pains, but when they're escalating and your function is changing, or you start avoiding activities that you normally would do because you're having pain or you note swelling, it's important that you see a rheumatologist promptly.
Sure.
And it's very difficult, and the family care doctors have a very difficult job.
Sure they do.
But if at any thought, at any time, that there is concern for other modalities, a rheumatology consult would definitely be warranted.
Absolutely. So with all the great information you provided to us today, from comprehensive exams to all the different things on Infusion Center, what's your take-home message for this community?
I think the important thing is don't delay your intervention.
Sure.
Although, as I've stated several times during the discussion today, that we are a side effect-driven society, but diseases themselves, if they're not controlled, have side effects as well. Take control of your disease, take control of your life. the more you do to keep your body healthy, it's the only car you get to drive.
That's right.
You can't turn it in for another model.
That's excellent.
Eat well, exercise, and take care of your body and do the best you can for it. There's many things out there to help you, and all medication is not bad medication.
Dr. Fitch, thank you so much. You've been an excellent
pleasure.
source of information to us today. Again, I think that, it's very enlightening. And again, when we live in a world that has inundated by, the internet and all that type of stuff, and people don't know where to turn, I think the most important thing is the relationship between the family doctor and then the specialist that provide the care that is needed as well. So thank you so much for joining us on our show today.
Thank you.
So again, this is Health Talk, and the purpose of Health Talk is twofold. It's basically to inform our community and to have them make the most informed decisions that they can. Good day and good health.
Just down the street, there's a hardware store with great tools, products,
and expert advice.
We've got everything you need because we know the community
And we know our customers.
So next time you have a home improvement project,
Drop by.
your local True Value hardware store. True Value.
Start right.
Start here.
Your True Value expert is A.D. Moyer in Gilbertsville and Pottstown. On the web at admoyer.com.
Limerick Bowl is the area's ultimate family entertainment center. Your league bowling headquarters for all ages and all abilities. Come in anytime and enjoy daily specials or experience our weekend glow bowling. Celebrate your next birthday at Limerick Bowl with the area's most affordable party packages. Now including our newly renovated Family Fun Arcade. Limerick Bowl on West Ridge Pike. Get more information about upcoming leagues, tournaments, and open bowling specials online at limerickbowl.com.
Do you want to advertise your business, product, or service on TV and the internet for less than you thought possible? It's as easy as 3 simple steps. Step 1, call the PCTV network to set up your private comprehensive information session about your advertising needs. Step 2, let the PCTV network script, produce, and shoot your personalized commercial for as little as $150. Now that is extremely affordable. Step 3, let the PCTV network saturate the Tri-County area with repetitive hits of your new commercial. It's simple, so easy, and yes, even super affordable. The PCTV network, your hometown station, we're home for you. The PCTV network, powered by TELUS Vision. I'm Al Ganoza, and we'll see you on TV.
Just down the street, there's a hardware store with great tools, products,
and expert advice.
We've got everything you need because we know the community
And we know our customers.
So next time you have a home improvement project,
Drop by.
your local True Value hardware store. True Value.
Start right.
Start here.
Your True Value expert is A.D. Moyer in Gilbertsville and Pottstown. On the web at admoyer.com.
Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and this is Health Talk Pennsylvania. Today we are very blessed and fortunate to have Dr. Domney on with us, who is our local pediatrician for Panda Bear Pediatrics. And today we're going to talk about vaccines. Dr. Domney has some extensive experience in this field. She graduated in, I think, 1993 from PCOM. She has her own practice and owner-operator since 2004. She's also an associate professor at PCM as well, which then she has third-year med students come through, and she teaches them the clinical wisdom of her expertise. We have been having this discussion about vaccines, and we're starting to see some different things rise up here, I think in Connecticut, Ohio, and California, where we see pertussis that is starting to become on the rise, and which was once what we considered eradicated at this time. So, with that being said, what is pertussis?
Well, pertussis is a specific bacteria, Bordetella pertussis, that causes a cough illness. And it's mostly seen with children, but the actual carriers are adults.
How's the spread?
The spread is usually just through respiratory droplets. So if an adult or a carrier was sneezing, coughing, or having any type of cold-like symptoms, they could easily spread it anywhere.
Gotcha. So what are the most common signs and symptoms of pertussis?
Pertussis is a three-stage illness, and in the first week to 2 weeks, it's just like a cold from any common virus. And so the child will present, or the patient will present with, runny nose, coughing, sneezing, and that's at its early stages. Then it moves beyond that into what we call a catarrhal stage, where they have more increased symptoms of the runny nose and the coughing and the sneezing, and the cough progresses and worsens to a point where sometimes the child will have some difficulty breathing, and that's usually what the concern is. And then finally, once they get through that stage, which is the middle stage, which can last almost 2 to 6 weeks, they finally come to the recovery phase. And that, they will still have some of the coughing symptoms, but the rest of the cold-like symptoms will start to subside. We often dub pertussis illness as the 100-day cough.
So, everybody knows it and distinguishes it by the whooping cough.
Yes,
like you're
the
saying
whooping cough, exactly. Sorry.
And so I guess what happens with it is, like you're saying, when you go through those short bursts of coughs, that's where you get the inhalation in, and they look like they're gasping for air.
Exactly, yes. And that second stage, what I describe is they cough, 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 and then all of a sudden they take a deep breath in to try to recover their breathing.
Now, if a child has pertussis, how do you evaluate them? How do you treat them?
Well, there are certain testings that we could do. Some of them are nasal swabs, and we send them out for specific pertussis culture. That does take some time, almost up to a week. There's also some blood testing that we can do. But once we have diagnosed a child or a patient with pertussis, then it's simple enough to treat with some specific antibiotics. And for pertussis, it would be erythromycin.
Okay. Now, I thought we were discussing this before we started shooting today, and I thought this was really interesting. When you look at it from a national level, say 1940, and we look at how high the incidence of pertussis was, and then you see the introduction of the vaccine in 1945, and you see the causal of that reaction as well. Can you give some insight on what you saw between 1940 and 1945 and 1946, and even to currently today, on the prevalence of pertussis?
Okay. Yes. Prior to the introduction of the vaccine, back in the 1940s, there were almost as many as 2 million cases per year of pertussis, and that was in a time frame from 1940 to 1945. Okay. Once the vaccine was introduced, which was about 1945, we saw an immediate decline of those episodes to less than 200,000 cases per year. And currently, as long as we keep the vaccination program up to date, we may see maybe 1,000 cases per year. So you can see that there's a significant impact with the vaccination program of pertussis.
Absolutely.
To the decline of the disease.
So here's the interesting thing. So we look at California, we look at Connecticut and Ohio, where we're starting to see spikes in. And there was a study out, I think, in 2009, written by Glantz out of pediatrics at this time, showing such a high increase in pertussis rates at this point. I think California, back in as of April 2010, were about 1,800, 2,000 cases, and they usually only have about 2,100 cases per year. What is the reasoning that we're starting to see some, an increase in pockets, of pertussis, as much as, like back in 1959? That's what we're starting to compare some of these numbers to. Why are we starting to see some of these increases?
Well, simply, it's just a resurgence of vaccine refusal. And a lot of that, parents, especially parents, are concerned about safety of vaccines. And unfortunately, there are other vaccines where there were thoughts to be some causal relationship between a vaccine and some side effects or certain illnesses, and that has been proven to be not true.
We are looking at a small niche of the population that's really vulnerable at this point. And it seems to be the infants, but I thought by doing this research, what I also found very interesting, and we had talked about this as well, is that the reason that the infants are truly exposed to this is because of their caretakers. Can you explain that?
Sure. Yes. The Bordetella pertussis bacteria is actually specific to a human host. So it's actually an adult that will carry this organism, and because the adults, unfortunately, sometimes are not as well vaccinated as our children, they're the ones that are passing it on to the child or the baby that they're taking care of. So,
which then brings us to our next question. Why do you have to have boosters on the vaccine?
Exactly. That's for that reason, because the vaccinations, immunity doesn't last forever, and so it is very important, especially for adults or any caretaker of children, to get that booster dose of pertussis vaccination.
Which I think is really, a misconception. A lot of people, they go from the old school where they think if you're exposed to something, then you have that immunity for life. But that doesn't seem to be the truth when you're dealing with vaccines. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. When you think about it and all the wonderful information you've provided to us today, what is your take-home message out of this whole thing?
Well, my take-home message would be to understand the importance of the vaccination program, not just for pertussis, but for other illnesses that we've been successfully able to eradicate out of our community, but also important to understand that everyone should get their vaccination. So not just children and babies, but also adults, especially those adults who will be taking care of our children and our babies, because they will be the ones, unfortunately, who will pass on this specific bacteria to the children.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Dahmy, for coming on the show. You've presented us with a lot of great information, a lot of food for thought, per se. And, I think what has happened here is that vaccines have actually become an enemy of their own success, if we can imagine that. So, again, with our healthcare and with our system that we're looking to continue to improve upon, we also want to make sure that we're making decisions off of the evidence and what is most out there. There has been tens of thousands of researches out there that support the efficacy of vaccines, and very, very limited evidence out there that supports the non-efficacy of these treatments and these vaccines. So again, I just want to make sure that we bring that stuff to light and make sure that we continue to improve our community through knowledge and what the evidence is actually directing us towards. So I just want to say have a great day and good health.
This is the Pennsylvania Report with State Senator Judy Schwank. The Pennsylvania Report, a look at your state government working for the future of Berks County.
We have never had a Pennsylvania farm bill that I can certainly ever recall. And this was a very intentional and very important effort to really look at the agriculture industry throughout the Commonwealth, see how we could enhance it.
And how do these bills help farmers?
Well, a number of different ways. First of all, there is some funding in there, for example, for the dairy investment program. There are tax credits so that farmers can make some of the conservation improvements on their farms that are very expensive, they don't always have the funding to be able to do. it's funding to help get beginning farmers, particularly in terms of ag sciences curriculums. So there's funding for that as well. There is more promotion of the Pennsylvania Preferred brand, our own signature branding for Pennsylvania products. There are programs that will assist farmers who want to do processing on their farm, for example, meat processing. And there's an awful lot of regulations they need to comply with. We're going to help them to be able to do that. There's also my own particular bill, which will help beginning farmers who are buying a preserved farm. They will not have to pay the state realty transfer tax. There is a beginning farmer tax credit program overall. So there are a number of different ways that we're going to be able to look at agriculture, from every aspect, everything from hemp to soybeans. There is something in this package of bills that will help agriculture.
And it will help agriculture not just now, but in the future as well.
Exactly, and that's what I think I was most excited about. It's looking at the industry as it exists now, but what will it look like in the future? How do we encourage more younger people to get involved in agriculture, whether on the farm or in the laboratory? How do we make sure that we have the resources available to assist farmers that want to get started? It's very costly. So that's in there too. And a transition. So there's succession planning for farmers who want to get out of the industry but want to help a beginning farmer.
And also something to help when that inevitable disaster strikes a farmer.
Exactly, and this is very important. We learned this in my district and in Berks County in particular, is when you have an invasive pest come in like the spotted lanternfly that can literally devastate so many crops, we need to marshal our resources and make sure that we can address those problems very quickly. So we will have those funds ready and waiting to be able to address big problems.
Everyone. The 11th district, which I represent, is a very diverse place. Lots of little towns and interesting places to see. And we're in one of my favorites. I say that every time, but they all are my favorites. I'm in the borough of Kutztown, and I happen to have a very special guest with me, the mayor of Kutztown, Mayor Jim Schlegel. Mayor, you are a hometown guy, born and raised here and now serving as the mayor. Tell us a little bit about Kutztown as it is now.
Okay, first of all, in Pennsylvania Dutch, welcome to Kutztown.
All right, thank you.
All right. Kutztown is a diverse little town. We have around 5,300 permanent residents. When the college isn't in session, when the college is in session, that bumps it up almost 8,000.
Wow.
Okay. We have a police department that's very well trained and professional, but is a little bit bigger than what we should have for the size of our town, but we need them. So we keep them. Okay. Right. Great. We have a great fire company. We have a great emergency management team. Kutztown is a neat place to live. I've been here all my life. I've traveled the world. I spent 14 months in Germany and 11 months in Vietnam. And be it ever so humble, there's no place like Kutztown.
You're a great ambassador for the town, that's for sure, Mayor.
Well, I enjoy doing it.
So, it's kind of interesting, because you alluded to this, the fact that Kutztown University is, just up the hill from us. Mm-hmm. So it's very much a part of your governance in terms of how the borough operates. Absolutely. And, public safety issues. There's all kinds of things.
Those are some of the major
How do you feel your relationship is with the university?
I think it's great.
Good.
The president has the new president, Dr. Hawkinson, great fellow. I enjoy meeting with him. We go to lunch every now and then, and I tour him around Kutztown in the area, and I show him things that he didn't know existed, and he just has a great time. But we have a good relationship. Years ago, sometimes there weren't good relationships, but I would say in the last 15 years, the relationship between the town and the county has been good.
That's always important. They call that town and gown, right?
Yes,
it really is important, because the businesses that, are here, like we're in front of Adam and Eve.
One of the best little businesses in town.
They need to be sure that we've got a good relationship, not only with the students, but with their parents, right? Because they bring a lot of income into the community. They eat, they shop, and they also live here. But I understand there's some changes coming to
There are
town.
some changes coming. the university's population has been decreasing in the last several years, and a lot of the in-town student housing is having difficulty renting out.
I noticed a lot of for rent signs.
Right, a lot of for rent signs all over Kutztown, and right now we're in the position. In fact, we just did hire an organization from Allentown to do a study to see what we can do to make Kutztown more vibrant, get the homes filled with families, get some new businesses here in town, and it's always a challenge. It's just things,
right, but things evolve, right? You
Right.
remember the borough as a child and how different it was then, and now it's changed throughout our lives.
Back when I was a boy, Kutztown had a whole lot of factories and manufacturing,
Right.
but we just still do have some manufacturing. Deca Battery has a plant here.
Right. We make toothbrushes here.
We make toothbrushes here. We make cables.
Art supplies.
Art supplies. We still manufacture things
You
here.
betcha.
And I would like to see more manufacturing come back to Kutztown.
Right.
And I think down the road that'll happen.
That could happen. That's for sure.
I see that happening. Yeah.
So I wish you well, and I'm certainly, as your senator, looking at these plans to, help in the ways that we can help to foster some of that economic development and the changes in the housing that you're looking at. And, I think the school district would be happy to hear.
I think they would like
because
to.
Because they're also losing population.
They are, yeah. And the sad thing about the school district is we're losing the superintendent. He's moving on.
He's got a better job.
He was a great superintendent.
Yes,
so we have to find a new one.
And you will.
Yeah, we will.
So there's lots of things happening in the
all
borough.
The time.
We're excited to be here. Thank you for welcoming us.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you around.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm still here in Kutztown on Main Street, and one of really my favorite shops here, I have to admit, and that's Adam and Eve. And this is Kevin Snyder. Kevin is the proprietor of Adam and Eve, and we're old friends going way back.
We're old friends.
So, Kevin, tell me a little bit about how did you get started in this anyway?
Boy.
I don't really know what your career was. As long as we've known each other, I'm not so sure.
My mother.
I've met your mom.
Former Mrs. America, 1954.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Had a little dress shop at the top of the hill. And growing up, we would go shopping. I love clothing. She said, Kevin, do you want to open a men's section? Adam and Eve.
So that's where the name came from?
Yes.
Okay. It's kind of an eclectic mix of, different things that would appeal to women of all ages, really.
I just buy what I like.
Yeah.
And hope.
And I like what you buy,
and
obviously.
It's legalized gambling is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm buying now, almost now for spring. Fall is already finished. And, I order it. It gets shipped, I paid for it, open the door and see what happens.
It is casual clothing, mostly natural fibers, right?
Mostly natural fibers, yeah.
And easy styles to wear.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I call them, they're more not investment pieces, but they don't go out of style.
Right.
They're not trendy.
Right. What have you got for me for a late summer that I can wear to work?
Well, I'm particularly fond of this little outfit right there.
Okay, let's go take a look at it. Mm-hmm.
The little cardigan, little pearl.
See, I like the way you accessorize everything. It's not just a dress hanging on.
This is just by accident. I just kind of walk by, put a handbag there, put a necklace on, and that's it.
And a hat. You are a member of Borough Council.
I am president of Borough Council.
You're president of Borough Council. So,
yes.
Tell me a little bit about the relationship with the university and what it's like being downtown. I mean, obviously, you're attracting more than students to be your customers.
It's always a transition with the university. The parents come, bring their kids. The kids run free, and the parents come shopping.
So the borough is really looking at expanding more housing for regular families and adults, not so much student housing anymore.
We're going to try to transition out of student housing and into family-oriented housing, which is why we just hired the engineers, HRG, to do a study, and that's just started. We're just starting now. And that intermodal,
right?
The grants?
Grant.
Right. Multimodal.
Multimodal, yeah. Yeah, and so that's just starting now. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of conversation about it now.
Okay.
I'm not sure what your feeling is about it.
Well, I'd
I'm
love
sure
to
it's
see
positive.
I'd love to see the project you put together. These are important projects in our communities.
Well, the project isn't put together. I mean, we're still trying to figure out back and forth what is the best solution. I mean, the idea is to put up a bus depot of sorts, right? A parking ride. So where do we put a parking ride?
You know, this is another wonderful business here in Kutztown, Adam and Eve. A great place to shop, very friendly. And you'll get an awful lot of good advice and, you know, assistance with your shopping. Very different than buying online or, you know, being in a big box store. So I hope you'll come.
It's very specialized.
And visit Adam and Eve in Kutztown.
Thanks, Judy.
You bet, Kevin.
Let's shake.
All right. So I'm here with John Schumann. John is the owner of the Venerable Spuds restaurant here in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. One of many really great places to eat, but one that a lot of people, especially students and locals, love to come to for your great burgers. And I understand you always have fresh cut fries, John.
It's a fact.
That's a big deal in Berks County, fresh cut fries. Tell me what that is.
I mean, it is just straight from the potato. So we bring in a fresh potato and run it through a blade and cut it into fries.
Right, so they are not frozen and they taste so much better.
No, they're never actually even refrigerated. So
there you go. Really? Wow. So that's what we Berks County folks look for. But anyway, I get ahead of myself. So John, tell me a bit about your business, how you got started in it, how long you've been in business.
So we started in October of 2005. I went to school for hotel and restaurant management at Penn State, working in restaurants and hotels through school. And I was local to Berks County. I went to Brandywine High School. So,
oh my gosh, you are local.
Yeah, I knew a lot about the town. Spent a lot of time in Kutztown through high school, and realized there was really just pizza and Chinese foods.
So this is kind of the dream that you had, and now here you are, and doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
What's the best sellers?
Well, when we started, it was actually, we were just thinking, let's do fries. Let's top fries and nothing else. Burgers weren't even an original concept on the menu. After about, I want to say, it was only a few months, we thought we need something else, you know, because what really made that click is this time of year in the summer, there's no students, so as far as businessmen and women, locals, they're not really looking for just French fries. So we spun into burgers, topping burgers and different sandwiches, and kind of went on from there. So now even we offer like the weekly specials that you took notice to.
Right. I can't wait to taste this stuff.
Kind of switch the menu up to almost like a gastro pub style concept every week, new items, because like I said, in the summer it's the same revolving people that you see, and they don't want a burger and fries every time they're eating lunch, so we try and adapt.
So you've got salads, you've got chicken, you've got burgers, you know, a whole wide array of stuff. And the toppings, like I couldn't make up my mind, because there was like 100 different ways you could have burgers and fries, right?
Yes.
So you can top both.
Yeah, I think there's about 50 topping choices.
You're here at a university town. What's it like when you're in business in a town like Kutztown? I mean, they try to promote small business. Are you involved in some of those activities too?
Yes, there's a community partnership that tries to connect the university and the students as much as possible. There's so much food on the campus.
Yeah, that has evolved over the, they have a lot of fast food options there. It's not the same old cafeteria food.
Right. It's one of the bigger issues that we're dealing with since we started. You know, when we started, there was a dining hall on campus. Now there's everything from Chick-fil-A to Starbucks to sushi. You know, everywhere you turn on campus, there's food.
Right.
On top of that, student housing downtown is struggling. You probably noticed the majority of buildings have a for rent sign on. Again, that makes it tough. Maybe it was the year before last, they pulled sophomores and freshmen on campus. They forced them to live on campus for their first 2 years. So that was tricky, obviously. So really, I mean, not to say that we don't focus on the students. You know, we deliver to campus. We serve a lot of students during the semesters. when they're in school. But at the same time, you really have to
You have to cultivate and do different.
Drive toward the local crowd.
And I think the whole town is really trying to do that as well. It means you have to change your business model a little bit, but you're adapting to it.
Trying, yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing people in.
It's a project, an ongoing project, yeah.
Well, this looks fabulous. So what we've got is a California cheeseburger. Everybody in Berks County knows what that is. Great fresh burger, lettuce, tomato, cheese, and mayo, right? And those signature fresh cut fries. But I had to go to something different. And I got a pierogies covered with chili, right? You tell me what's in.
Homemade chili, melted cheddar cheese, and chives. So it's a different concept. We actually do quite a bit with pierogies.
Do you?
Yeah.
That seems to be a popular thing too,
It is,
right?
yeah. We do different types of pierogi. We call them pierogi pies. So top them with different ones. This has, like I said, the chili and the cheddar cheese. We do one with homemade gravy and mozzarella cheese.
Next time I'll get that one.
Yeah, that actually has ground beef on it as well. So it's kind of like a Pennsylvania Dutch.
That sounds like comfort food to me.
Yeah.
Looks delicious. Thank you, John, for welcoming us into Spud's here on Main Street in Kutztown. And we're going to head out and visit some other places too. There's a whole diversity of small business available here for shoppers in Kutztown, not just for students, but for everybody. So here we are again on our Kutztown road trip, and we've just moved up really across the street on Main Street in Kutztown, PA, and we're in what is called the Vault, a very interesting business that I think a lot of you might find interesting. Mike C. is the proprietor of the Vault. Mike, get started. Tell us what you sell here, where we're at, a little bit about the history of how you got into this business.
Okay. We opened up about a little over 3 years ago. We sell comic books, board games, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, card games like Magic the Gathering, lots of hobby stuff. Got a little bit of trains, some miniature wargaming, diorama building. Try to cover a lot of different areas.
So you could have customers that would be kids all the way up to adults, right?
For the child and all of us, no matter the age.
There you go. It sounds like you've had to answer that question before. Comic books and this stuff is just not for kids.
No, there's definitely some out there for kids. We have an entire kids section over there, and I really like. It's actually one of the joys of my job is when we get kids in and get reading material in their hands.
Right, rather than a screen, right?
Right.
And the board games, of course, too.
Yes,
which are also a lot of fun.
Great family activities. The building was originally built in 1908, and fun fact: the Kutztown Historical Society still has some pictures of the construction. But it was built as a bank, Keystone State Bank. And you can still see some of that around in the architecture. It was then later Kutztown National Bank. It then, in about the 60s, 70s, was the Borough Hall. So the borough did their business here. In the 80s and 90s, it was the Edged Weapons Museum, which it still has across the top of the building. Then in around the 2000s, it became the Tattoo Parlor, and I got it from them, like I said, about 3.5 years ago. I try to shoot for a nice place for people to come and spend time, not just stop in and shop, but also spend time. So we do like board game nights. So we run D&D here. Do times when people can come in and play different games. So and all of that we keep a calendar on our website, on the Facebook. Here's where we keep our board games, like our Settlers of Catan, which is a really popular one.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's that one about?
So it's a resource game. So on your turn, you roll the dice, and then whatever number the die comes up on, you collect. If you have a city there, you collect resources for that, and you use those to buy and build up your space. And each thing's worth different points, and once you get to a certain number, you win.
Sounds like Monopoly on a different level?
Yeah, it's
kind of.
A little bit, yeah, because you are still trying to collect up your resources.
I think I would enjoy playing that.
Here we've got our new comics on the wall here. So they're organized so that we've got our Marvel comics, our DC comics, and then kind of our all the rest are these last 3 bays. I have them roughly partitioned out to science fiction, fantasy, and then everything else.
Here's one I remember, Sabrina the Witch.
We've also got Archie here.
Wow, I didn't know that still existed. Archie has changed. He doesn't look the same.
And I do have, we do get reprints of classic Archie, which I keep down in our kids section.
Okay, let's take a look.
So, yeah.
And I noticed, Mike, that there's a lot of female subjects in terms of the hero or the focus of the story. I like that.
That has been a growing thing. I really appreciate that as well. So yeah, like I said, we've got our classic Archies down here.
That's the Archie I remember, right? So, Mike, thank you again for inviting us in. This is a fascinating little shop you've got in here, and things that I would never have dreamt exist, or still exist, let's say, like the old Archies and some of the board games that you showed me. I hope some of my viewers will stop back in. I know I'll be back in because I'm looking for a new board game. Berks County is known as the home of, many different kinds of businesses, the things that are created in this community, and one of the, something that is known internationally, and it's right here in Kutztown, is Sorelli Jewelry. And I bet if I say that name, a lot of you recognize Sorelli. I certainly do, because it is certainly, just the stunning jewelry, and it's not made necessarily right here in Kutztown, but the flagship store and the headquarters are here in Kutztown. And I'm here with Lily Oswald. I'm very, very lucky. She is the CEO of Sorelli. Lily, thank you so much for welcoming us.
Thank you for being here.
We really appreciate it.
So glad you came.
This is such a great place. Tell me the history of Sorelli. How did you get started in it? I know your parents had a role in this too.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about the history.
So my parents started Sorelli in 1983. My dad's actually a Kutztown native, so he grew up here, actually right across the street. His mom still lives in their original townhouse. And my parents met at Kutztown University, so they went there in the late 70s, the place to go if you were interested in art education, which I think is still the case here in PA. So they met doing their Bachelor's of Fine Arts, and then started this business really together. They had moved to New York City shortly after graduation. They had me in 1986 and realized New York City is not the place to stay with the family, so they came back to Kutztown.
Are you engaged in the design too and the manufacturing?
Yeah, so my brother actually is our COO, so he runs production. We actually own our own factory right outside of Shanghai, which is very abnormal for the industry. Most design companies and brands outsource to kind of third parties and try to get the best price. What we do is we've trained artisans over many years to really learn the craft of how to make Sorelli. Many of them were trained by my mom. And from a design standpoint, my mom actually is the head designer still. Okay. So she works with us day to day. She's in the office every day making collections. And I'm super involved with that with her, which is really fun. Having my mom at the helm and being this, such a dedicated designer, I think having that continuity of design has been really helpful for us. And it really sets apart Sorelli. A lot of people can tell what a Sorelli piece is, whether or not they've seen.
People say that to me all the time. That's Sorelli, right? They look at your necklace.
Yeah, so I think having that design continuity over the last, 35 plus years has definitely helped. I also think they've had such a dedication to the product itself. So my parents are artists first and foremost before business people, and they really believe in making a quality product. So the best crystals, the best, brass findings we can find, the best designs, and we actually stand behind that to the point where we have a lifetime guarantee on everything. I
didn't know that.
Which is very abnormal for our industry. So I think those two things are probably part of the reason why it's succeeded.
I know what attracts me to it. Obviously, the crystals, they're amazing. The quality is unbelievable. And the color. You do such colorful things as well.
Yep.
And pieces that are, they're statement pieces. They're something that you wear when you really want to look special.
Yeah.
Show me a little bit about some of your lines and the things that you love the most.
Yeah, so what we're standing in front of is our our new collection for fall.
And you're wearing it.
And I am wearing it, yeah. So this is part of our urban collection. It's a lot of mixed metal. It's a little less colorful, a little more neutral.
Mm-hmm.
I was showing you earlier that I think this is quite an everyday look. We also have quite the statement pieces here too. This is our Bohemian Brights collection, also that we launched for spring. So this is a true multi. So you can see kind of pinks and mints mixed with
I love the bracelets
aqua.
with the mixed colors in them. They're just, they're subtle and they're special when you wear them.
I think people find that they go with a lot of things,
Right.
so they like that a lot,
Yeah.
which is fun. And then this is Candy Pop. So we just launched this last month.
Okay.
This is our bright gold finish, a little, bright, you could say. I love the statements. These hoops are doing super well.
Yeah.
I've been really excited. We could do this for you, Judy, for an everyday look.
It's me. That's the one I have.
You have the clear one?
Yeah.
Nice. I love that she's a customer also.
These look like museum quality.
These are our avant-garde pieces, yes. And these were really made.
Are they really for sale?
They are for sale. They actually do get purchased, believe it or not.
How would I look if I wore that in the Senate?
Maybe, should we show you one? Should we try one on?
Sure.
All right, let's see. Should we go to the biggest one?
Oh, yeah.
Go big or go home?
Right.
All right, let's see. This one is very heavy, but very delightful. Playing dress up.
See, I could think you
Judy.
could wear that with something very simple, and
Just a black dress.
You would look fabulous,
All right,
right?
let's see how it looks on Judy.
All right.
Oh, there we go. Just gotta clip it. There we go. Very nice. Maybe not with the blazer, but with the black dress.
So, Lily, thanks for welcoming us in. Sorelli really is fabulous.
Thanks for coming.
They are accessories that I know a lot of people look for. The quality is fantastic. I'm glad you've decided to be here in Berks County, and your flagship store is right here in Kutztown. That's an honor to have you here.
Oh, thanks for saying that.
Thank you so much.
This is our home.
Yes, it is. So we're glad you're staying home.
People with disabilities may request a transcript of this program by calling area code 717-787-5166. The TTY number is 1-800-364-1581.
Thank
Thank you for joining us for Trips and Tips with Klein Tours. I'm Allison Klein Sherman, and I'm here with my mom Adele today, and we're excited to explore Lancaster County and its farmland and learn about the Amish experience. We're here with some beautiful horses. You can take a horse and buggy ride here in Lancaster, and that's just one of the many things that you can do here at the Amish experience. We're here at the gardens in front of the Amish Country Homestead. Tell us a little bit about this area of your property.
Well, when people come here and take a tour, one of the things we can't normally do is take people right inside an Amish house where people are living or go into a one-room school. So the Amish Country Homestead here is our opportunity to show people the inside of things. Okay. So we have a one-room school with desks that actually came from a real Amish school. Wow. It's decorated with the help of an Amish teacher. And then the other 8 rooms of the house are the living room, the bedrooms, and so forth. And so we can talk about the plain clothing, how the Amish live without electricity. I think one of the important things that we do on all of our tours here is we try to interpret. So we're not just guides, but we want to explain why the Amish do what they do. For example, why can they have a bottle gas refrigerator but not an electric one? Why can they ride in a bus or a car but they have to drive a horse and buggy when they're riding on their own? So the way our house is set up, we try to portray the way the Amish live today, because the Amish are always changing and evolving in their lifestyle. And for that reason, we are the only Amish house tour that's been designated a heritage site by Lancaster County. So we really try to portray the Amish as accurately as we can. And to give people an idea, the things in the house change from time to time as we see new things that the Amish are accepting or adopting in their furnishings or way of life.
It really is amazing to see how they're functioning in our world today with all of the things that we have offered to us and the choices that they're making as far as what is acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah, and it's a balancing act. And we like to say that in our world, too, with all the technology, we have to decide as well, you know, how are we going to let our kids stay in front of the internet all day long unsupervised? I don't think so. So we all have to deal with the impact of technology on our lives. And the Amish have their way of doing it, revolving around family and community. And we have our own way of determining how we're going to handle technology.
Tell us a little bit about these gardens here. It's amazing, the fruits that I'm seeing in front of me here.
Well, the whole idea here is, first of all, most of the Amish have a little family garden, and they're usually very well kept. And I think because there are so many visitors here, they often plant flowers and try to make the garden look attractive from the road. But this is also a restaurant. And while they don't grow enough food here to feed everybody at a family-style meal, they do come out here and pull things from the garden when they're ready to use to take into the restaurant. Otherwise, they're mainly buying a lot of the foods from the local Amish that live around here. But the other interesting thing is their little signs at different spots in the garden, because a lot of people who come here have never actually seen, this is a tomato plant. Okay, in the supermarket they just come in boxes, okay, or they're sitting there, right? And so you'll see a lot of people who will walk around here, spend 15 minutes or so looking at all the signs, seeing what all these vegetables look like while they're growing. And I only recently saw Brussels sprouts on a stalk. I never really knew what Brussels sprouts looked like when they were growing. So, you know, I'm not exactly a city kid, but there are just a lot of things like that especially people from the city are not familiar with.
Great educational tool as
it
well,
is.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
I think the only temptation is not, you know, pull a tomato off and eat it.
Yes.
Well, here in the boys' room, we'd like to talk a little bit about Amish clothing, and obviously here is what most of the Amish are going to be wearing. They're called the plain people because they dress very plainly. So solid colored shirts, no patterns, prints, no logos. And the pants, belts, buckles, and zippers were newer forms of fashion the Amish did not accept. And so these are the broad fall pants that are buttoned and open up in the front. Now, if you see Amish people out in public, dressed up, going to church, you're probably going to see them in the more formal vest and coat, which have hooks and eyes instead of buttons. The metal hook on the one side, slips through the eye on the other. And hundreds of years ago in Europe, buttons were actually something new and fashionable that only the wealthy people wore. So peasants like the Amish, they weren't going for things that were fancy. And for a while in Germany, the Germans nicknamed the Amish the Hookeniers, and they called the Mennonites the Buttoners. So the way the Amish dress has a lot of symbolism and importance for their religion and sends a message both to them and the rest of us who observe them dressed this way. You might almost think of the Amish way of dress like a uniform. Now here in the girls' rooms, we're going to show you how Amish girls and women dress. And little girls would wear, again, solid colored outfit like this when they're going to school with a black sleeveless apron or pinafore on the top. But when they go to church on Sunday, they're going to change from that black one to the white one. So you'll see something like this at worship. And of course, most people know the Amish women wear a prayer covering. It's based on New Testament scriptures that say women should have their heads covered when praying, and so Amish women usually always have their heads covered with a prayer covering. Now, a slightly older girl might be wearing something like this in the summer, and you can see there are some buttons here, a little pocket, but again, the whole idea of this is that it's very plain and simple. Now, as a girl becomes a little bit older, for formal dress, she's going to have a three-piece outfit. So this is a dress. A blue dress is solid color with a cape matching the dress underneath. This will become black when she gets married, and then the black apron. But when they go to church on Sunday, if she's single, she's going to wear a white cape and apron. So this is the white cape and apron that a single girl would wear to church. And after she gets married, she won't be wearing this anymore. This actually will become her wedding dress. And then the white cape and apron are packed away and saved and placed on her body when she dies, because the Amish dress people in white for burial. Now, we're in the parents' bedroom, and this is beside the kitchen where the heat is, because the Amish don't have any kind of central heat in the house. So it's a little warmer here for the little children. So boys and girls wear a dress like this when they're really little, but then the boys have to start looking like boys, so they wear a little miniaturized version of what their older brothers or dad would be wearing. And there is one subtle difference on the pants here. As you'll see, it has a row of snaps across the bottom, as I like to say, for emergency evacuation purposes. Well, without any electricity in an Amish house, lighting is a little bit different. And if you've ever gone camping, you know what a Coleman lamp is. So this is really just a variation of the Coleman lamp, and you'll find this in Amish homes all over America. So these little things are called mantles, and you would light these with a match, and they glow very brightly because you turn this, and in this is a tank of propane gas, just like you would use for a barbecue grill outside. So the propane comes up, these glow very brightly, and basically you have a rolling light. So you don't have to look for an outlet to plug it in. You can just roll it anywhere you want in the house. So it is. Now, we're in a room here that's kind of like a living room, and we enjoy a lot of the homemade Amish toys that are available. So this is a really interesting one. So we're going to let each of you participate, and just drop your ball there, right on top. Now, a lot of people see this and think this is a great toy for their grandchildren, and it is, except they never stop playing with it. So just a word of warning, okay?
And I'm sure that the Amish, they're so good with woodworking, they obviously make that toy.
Well, you can find all kinds of marble rollers, and we like to collect them here in our house just for fun, so people can see them and enjoy them, because I don't think marble rollers are just for kids.
And I noticed over there that the quilt, and I know that they spend a lot of time quilting here too, and then they're available in some shops, right,
yes,
to purchase.
And when we're out on a farmland tour, we will often stop at an Amish craft or quilt shop.
Okay.
And not everybody maybe is going to buy a quilt, but the Amish know that, and so they make wall hangings and a lot of other smaller things, including something called quillos, which are really just like a it looks like a pillow, but the top of it is quilted, and then inside you can pull it out and turn it into a covering. So it all folds back up into the size of the pillow.
So it has two purposes,
but just
a pillow
the top of
and
it
a
is quilted.
blanket.
So
Okay.
they sell for like $35, $40. It's a nice little thing to take home.
Right.
If you don't have all the money to buy a big quilt.
A big quilt for on your bed. Right, very good. Now, as I was looking at this toy and hearing the noise that was making, it came to mind that do they play instruments? Do the Amish play instruments?
No, the Amish
They
generally do not play instruments.
Oh, okay.
We know one Amish lady who plays the harmonica, and she's pretty good at it. But
Okay.
generally speaking, instruments are not something you're going to see the Amish playing. Even at church, they're singing a cappella in unison without any musical accompaniment. I don't know if you can pick up this one over here. My goodness, what happened to all the marbles?
Yeah.
Well, I'll get some from over here.
Oh, right here, there's some on the top. Somebody made a nice
I
little...
don't know why somebody put them there. All right. This one is really amazing. You'll have to kind of follow where the marble goes. This is the most complex marble roller we've found.
It has a little bell there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that is complex. It does do many things.
Yeah, go crazy. And the Amish toy maker we know actually made a marble roller about this big and this high, and it's a racer, something like this. So you each drop a marble in at the same time and try to see who wins the race till you get to the bottom. So they're really a lot of fun.
I really appreciate being able to be here today in Lancaster area, especially on such a wonderful, lovely afternoon. And the flowers are gorgeously in bloom. And Brad here has been such a wonderful host to us. And we would really love to host your group coming over to this area. I know there's so many special things right here at the Amish Experience. And Brad is going to share another opportunity that you have here.
Well, behind us is the Amish Experience Theater, where we also were seeing a little of a Magic Lantern show. But we have a story called Jacob's Choice. It deals with an Amish boy doing Rumspringa. We try to make it very authentic, and we bring in some of the story of the Anabaptists who were persecuted in Europe and how they came to America. It makes use of many special effects. Pepper's Ghost, there's wind and rain in the theater, a cannon goes off. So it's very entertaining, but it's also a very serious story. And it's designed to give people a more personal view of what it's like being Amish. And in addition to all the things we've already talked about, we have several theme tours for your groups. We have an Amish wedding. We have a one-room to Rumspringa tour. We have an Amish visit in person tour, which is a designated heritage tour where we actually visit and talk to Amish people. We have a school teacher come in and do a session in our schoolroom. We have a Quest for Freedom tour that touches on the Underground Railroad and the Amish. We have a cooking tour where people actually can get to make some shoe fly pie and chicken pot pie dough. So there are all kinds of theme tours that we have. And we can also arrange for a buggy ride, just as you saw on our farmland tour, some of those carriages were going by us. So we have a wealth of activities and things to do, whether this is your first time or your 10th time.
Thank you so much, and you will enjoy the opportunity, and it encompasses so many different activities and interests, as Brad has mentioned. So please get your groups together and give us a call, and we'll set you all up for a wonderful afternoon here in Lancaster County.
Mary, please hurry. President Lincoln paced the floor, waiting for his wife. He was at peace, though. Just 6 days earlier, General Lee had surrendered at Appomattox. His family was no longer fighting his family. Mary, please hurry up, we'll be late. Soon they would head to the theater to see a play called Our American Cousin. Just after the theater and the show started, a man crept into the balcony where President Lincoln and Mrs. Lincoln were sitting. He was brandishing a pistol. He aimed and he fired, and then leapt the balcony and landed on the stage, breaking his leg. As he limped off stage, he stopped and faced the audience, and he said, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. And then he escaped. President Lincoln was carried across the street to the Peterson House. And as he lay dying, Edward Stanton, his Secretary of War, said, "Now he belongs to the ages."
In the 18th century, a group of Swiss and German immigrants settled in the heart of Pennsylvania, vowing to live a simple life apart from the world around them. They are the Amish. My quest for the ultimate feast from west to east has brought me to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the heart of Amish country, where Plain and Fancy Farm has been dishing up farm-to-table feasts for over 50 years. From platters of crisp golden brown fried chicken to succulent beef roast served with a cornucopia of farm-fresh veggies, this Amish feast is a true taste of hearth and home. If the Amish allow themselves one extravagance, it's feasting. And Plain and Fancy, supplied by local Amish farms, offers a chance to chow down Amish style. What are the advantages that you find flavor and taste-wise in actually taking the vegetables from here directly to the restaurant?
It's just got that fresh from the farm taste to it, and it's wonderful.
A feast at Plain and Fancy is an 11-course sampling of Amish country's greatest hits. Iced raisin bread, shoe fly and sour apple crumb pies, mashed potatoes, dried sweet corn, brown butter noodles, slippery pot pie, sausage, roast beef, and their crown jewel, fried chicken. Okay, now what is it about this fried chicken that makes it like so legendary?
This is the only fried chicken I actually like. It's crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside.
What is your favorite thing about getting together with family and friends for a big meal?
You get to see the people that you haven't seen in a while.
Fair enough. Here they all are. What do you have to say to them?
Hi.
Hi. Ready to bring this farm fresh feast together, I head to the kitchen. These feasts have been going on here at Plain and Fancy for over half a century, right?
Since 1959.
That is unbelievable. So for 52 years, you're getting a bite of tradition in a traditional fashion, which is pretty cool and very rare in this day and age. And how much chicken do you go through in the average week?
We will easily go through over 2,000 pounds of chicken.
Over 1 ton, 1 metric ton of chicken in a 7-day period. Yeah. This is a good place to chow down. Chef Steve prepares a massive 12.5 pounds of their flagship locally raised chicken. The fewest steps between the farm and your face, the better.
Right.
And pretty much here, there really are no steps between the farm and your face.
Not really, no, very few to be honest with you.
After being dipped in Plain and Fancy's secret wheat flour breading, designed to seal in the natural juices, the chicken is ready for one of the 14 giant pressure fryers. Now, what is the advantage, in your opinion, to the pressure fry?
It'll brown up this breading real nice and brown and crispy. The chicken meat is actually going to be nice and juicy and moist, but it's not going to be greasy.
You would think that the high pressure frying would force the oil into the meat, but it actually does the opposite.
It does the opposite, yeah.
It actually kind of seals it.
Yes, yes. And it'll cook this 12 pounds of chicken in about 13 minutes.
12 pounds. Tell that to my biceps. I'm doing some serious isometrics here. In goes the meaty cascade, and thanks to the interior pressure driving the boiling point over 100 degrees higher than a regular fryer's, we soon have an astonishing abundance of golden fried goodness. Oh, wow. It is a vault of pure deliciousness. The chicken alone is a mouth-watering meal, but we're feasting. So bring on the beef. A huge 8-pound roast covered in a secret spice rub.
Oh, it's so fragrant. Just from you, like, tossing it around, you can actually smell it.
Another thing I like to do if I can is to put the fat up so that as it cooks and that fat melts down, it goes right into the meat.
So it's like self-basting.
Exactly.
The bountiest beef is slow roasted for 4 hours.
Oh, man, that is unbelievable. The fat cap hasn't melted completely, which means that the meat inside is still juicy. You barely pull on it, and it just comes apart.
This massive feast also includes a Pennsylvania Dutch spin on a savory classic.
No homemade meal is more iconic than the chicken pot pie. But the pot pie that you guys serve at Plain and Fancy, this is a boiled product and not a baked one.
Correct.
And the actual nomenclature for this pot pie, the traditional name would be?
Slippery pot pie.
Slippery pot pie. And there's no actual crust. There's no pastry topping.
There is no crust, no. Strictly boiled.
For our feast, no mere pot is big enough. We gotta use a vat.
So this is all chicken broth.
Right.
And how many gallons?
About 16 gallons.
Wow, you could help a lot of Jewish boys through heartache.
Chef Steve adds carrots, onions, celery, and a whopping 30 pounds of chicken.
30 pounds to 16 gallons of broth.
While that's happening, we're gonna move on to the fun part of making pot pie.
Which would be?
Rolling out the dough.
And then what are we gonna actually make it into? If not a crust, what are we gonna have?
Noodles.
To make the noodles, Plain and Fancy has a one-of-a-kind culinary contraption.
Ever seen one of those before?
Whoa. I could like slice 8 pizzas at once. Wolverine, the later years. The X-Men weren't paying him enough, so he went into the pizza business. Come on, bub. You want a slice of pizza? Stick it. So these individual squares are like the noodles?
Correct. Pot pie squares. Once this comes to a second boil, we'll take 36 pounds of pot pie squares.
It's so crazy, and you could do this every day. That's what's so unbelievable. But let this come to a boil, because we have a whole lot of mouths to feed, because we are ready to hunker down to one authentic, farm-to-table, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Amish feast.
We're here in the Plain and Fancy restaurant with all of this delicious looking food in front of us, and I'm joined with Dara and Adam, and they're going to tell us a little bit about how they serve individuals and also groups coming to visit this area and the great food that they have to offer.
Well, hi everyone. Yes, Plain and Fancy has been in existence since 1959. We're the first family-style restaurant in Lancaster County, and we are solely interested in making a group tour the best it can be by serving our family-style feast. And we focus on our famous fried chicken, roast beef, sausage, all of which comes from local growers. Our family-style meal starts out with our fresh raisin bread with icing on top. We have fresh rolls with our famous apple butter. We serve chow chow, which is pickled vegetables. And we have a delicious garden salad with our own special house dressing. We start with all of that and get you all excited about our main meal.
All right. Here is our golden fried chicken.
Wow, that's delicious.
It looks great.
We have roast beef in a jus sauce.
Smells good.
Peppered pork sausage.
Wow.
Homemade mashed potatoes.
Delicious. That's for you, Allison.
Chicken pot pie.
I could eat it all, I'm sure.
Ours is made with homemade thick noodles rather than crust.
Oh,
so it's kind
this
of
is the
like,
kind I like.
Yeah, it's a little like chicken and dumpling. And then we have our vegetable medley. It's carrots, yellow beans, and green beans.
Right from the garden, I'm sure.
Brown buttered noodles. And then we have fresh corn off the cob.
summer favorite.
You are.
There we go.
And of course, we have gravy then.
Thank you so much. This
Welcome.
looks
And this is
delicious.
all you can eat, so if you need any refills, just let me know. Enjoy
Thank
your
you
meal.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't even know where to begin.
Well, I'm gonna.
Yes, go ahead first.
The wonderful thing about family-style dining is you get to sit at a wonderful community table. It's like having your very own family. You make friends for life when you eat family-style. You all enjoy, pass the plates. It's like dinner time the way it was meant to be.
All right. What we have here for dessert, we have vanilla ice cream with Hershey's chocolate syrup and rainbow sprinkles. You can dish that out in the bowls provided and pass it on. And in addition to the vanilla ice cream, we have shoe fly pie, which is molasses, brown sugar, and cinnamon. It's warmed up and topped with whipped cream. Second, we have our signature pie, which is sour cream crumb apple pie. It's a regular apple pie, but it has a layer of sour cream custard inside. And then instead of the normal pie crust, it's a crumb topping. We also top it with caramel. Third, we have an authentic Amish pie. It's called Snitz pie, which is made with dried apples, apple butter, applesauce, and spices. So if you're a fan of apple butter, you'd really enjoy this one. Fourth, we have a traditional chocolate cake with white icing. And last, we do have rice pudding, topped with cinnamon if you'd like. Okay, so this is also all you can eat. If you want to try all of them or a little bit of a couple, just let me know. All right? What would you like?
Apple, the second, or the
The
first
sour
apple
cream
pie with
apple
the crumb.
Sure.
Thank you for staying tuned with us for the Lancaster County area tour. We've had so much fun today. We learned so much from Brad. And plain and fancy, that's really the way it is with the Amish. You have to respect their way of life here. And we invite you to come on board our motor coach and bring your groups over here to Lancaster and enjoy the sights the way you truly can. Riding safely and relaxing in a motor coach is the way to travel. So we hope you join us on any one of our location tours and put your group together and bring them to Lancaster. And also, I wanted to say, the way we learned about the Amish today, their plain way of living, and we invite you to come on board our motor coach to relax. And also, we hope you leave your devices at home and learn how to really truly enjoy a vacation and have your significant other with you or your family so that you can focus and give your true attention to your family members. Allison and I have really enjoyed our time here together.
We sure
And that's what, we're a family business, and we invite you and your family to come on board with us to tour. And we do, unfortunately, I have to talk about the devices on our motor coaches. We do have availability to plug in your devices, and so that you can use them, Wi-Fi included on our coaches. But try to put those away and truly enjoy your destination of where you're going.
For more than 50 years, Pottstown Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery has served its community with expert dental care, offering patients dental implants and a full menu of procedures for many types of dental problems, including bone grafting, wisdom teeth, impacted canines, facial trauma, jaw surgery, oral pathology, TMJ disorders, and sleep apnea. Get the smile you've always wanted. Contact Pottstown Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery today.
Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this episode of Health Talk. Today we're going to be talking about child safety seats, and we have Officer Decker Dias here with us to give us some information on that. Officer Dias graduated from Boyertown in 1999, and then went on to earn his bachelor's from Penn State in 2004, and then eventually went on to earn his master's in criminal justice from Tiffin University in 2011. He's currently employed at New Hanover Police Department since 2006, and in addition to some of his normal responsibilities of being a police officer, crisis management, he's also the personal liaison for child safety, and then finally he is certified in child safety seats and the installation of them. So today we're going to talk about child safety seats, and there seems to be always a lot of confusion that goes in how to put these we'll say these apparatuses in our vehicle this time. I think the first thing we want to do is, can we start off just kind of characterizing or classifying what defines an infant versus what defines a young adult?
Sure. Infants are typically classified as those children between 0 and 1 year of age. Mm-hmm. Toddlers are between 2 and 4. 5 to 10 is what you would classify as adolescents. Sure. And then anything above that, like 11 to 14, would be your
more of your young adult.
Right, your young adult, and obviously anything above preteen, teenagers, and all that kind of stuff.
So when we look at the American Pediatrics Association, they have some specific recommendations for infants versus even young adults at this point, where they should be placed and how they should be sitting in the vehicle. Can you explain that and go on to it?
The guidelines have actually just changed recently, as of maybe about 6 months ago or so. Okay. We used to recommend that children stay or ride rear-facing in a rear-facing child seat in your vehicle until at least 1 year and 20 pounds. That has recently changed. Okay. What we recommend now is that they stay rear-facing until at least 2 years of age, or until they reach the upper height and weight limits for the seat itself.
So kind of outgrowing the seat then.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we even look at going from rear-facing to forward-facing, when does that transition occur?
That would occur, right around 2 years of age, or until they reach the upper height and weight limit for the seat itself. And the reason for that is that it's safer to ride in a vehicle rear-facing than forward-facing.
Yeah, so let's kind of explore that a little bit. What's the difference between a child, going rear-face versus forward-facing, and what's the implications of that?
Well, basically, in every vehicle collision, in every vehicle crash, there's actually 3 separate collisions. Okay. There's the vehicle hitting whatever object it's hitting. Sure. And then what you have is any occupant inside the vehicle is going to have to be stopped by something. Newton's first law of motion.
Sure.
So whether that be the seatbelt or the dashboard or whatever the case may be, that would be the second collision. Okay. And then, of course, anything inside the body, like your internal organs and stuff like that, are going to have to also be stopped by something, because they're going to want to continue forward as well. Sure. So they'll hit the rib cage or something like that. Right. So basically what we found is that if you're rear-facing, the crash forces, since most crashes are frontal, what we found is that anybody sitting rear-facing in a vehicle, the crash forces are actually spread out over a larger area in a child safety seat, because it would be spread out over the entire back, the neck area, the head, and stuff like that. And of course, this is vitally important for infants, especially because they don't have the neck control that you or I do, that adults do. And their heads are, heavier
than the rest of their body,
and larger in comparison than, to adults and stuff like that. Sure. So if we can prevent that neck movement, they're better off in a crash.
So the dissipation of forces across a greater area is basically what we're looking to do when we're having a child go rear-facing at this point.
Yep.
So when we look at that and we start to kind of understand more the physics on that, on how the accidents occur and the forces that go on with that, how does that kind of differ from, we'll say the toddler who's going to go ahead and go we'll say front-facing at this time, and you have less points of contact, so is there typically more injury associated with that then?
There are typically more injuries. What you'll have is, especially with, like I said, the younger children, they're still going to be stopped by the seat.
Sure.
They have the 5-point harness. Most of them are 5-point harnesses nowadays. So they're still going to be, their body is going to be stopped by the harness itself, but their neck is going to want to continue forward. I mean, you see this a lot even in adults, you know, with traffic collisions, stuff like that. You'll see a lot of people with like whiplash injuries and stuff like that because their neck, well, obviously, I'm sure you see stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the neck tries to continue forward because the body's stopped, but the neck isn't. There's nothing to restrain it.
But then the chances of a fatality become less because we have, again, forces distributed over 5 points rather than just 1 or 2.
Right.
Is that correct?
And yes, and what we'll see is typically for children properly restrained in a rear-facing child seat, you're going to see, I think the statistic is about 80% lower fatality rates. So it's pretty significant.
It is significant. So what are some of the common misconceptions that are associated with people wearing seatbelts, not strapping their kids in, that type of stuff? What's going on with that?
A lot of times what we'll see is parents, a lot of times, if they're going on short trips, just going down to the grocery store or something, something small, they feel because they're not going on a large trip, they're not going at higher speeds like on a highway or something like that, they feel a little bit safer, so they might not restrain themselves, they might not use their seatbelt, they might not restrain their child, take as good care as in restraining their child. But unfortunately, that's just not true. I mean, when you look at the statistics, 55% of all major crashes occur near the home in rural settings, like that type of thing. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense because you make more of those short trips, so the chances are higher that you're going to get into a more serious crash that way than you will on a major highway. The other thing that we see a lot is, everybody's got a story. Oh, well, I know somebody who, if they had been wearing their seatbelt, they would have died because the car went into a lake or something like that, and they wouldn't have been able to get out, or it caught on fire or something like that. And again, these are exceptions to the rule. This is not. This doesn't happen all the time. When you look at the statistics, you're looking at only about 0.5% of all vehicle crashes involve fire or water.
Wow.
So, you're talking 5 out of 1,000. It's not a whole lot.
Well, I thought it was very interesting when we were preparing for this, you and I were talking about, the concept that if you are restrained and you remain conscious, your chances of getting out of a water or a fire episode or situation are much greater. Correct?
Right. And that's just kind of what we were talking about earlier about, the 3 different collisions in a crash. If you're not restrained and you hit, say, the dashboard or the windshield or something like that and get knocked unconscious, not only are you not going to be able to get yourself out of the vehicle, but if you have a child in the car, you're not going to be able to get them out either. So,
so it becomes important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Now this brings us to another concept of when we look at the law versus recommendations and that type of stuff. And again, to me, on being on the outside seems confusing. See if you can bring some clarity to it because it doesn't seem like it all kind of adds up.
Right, and it is a little bit confusing, and unfortunately one of the problems with that is that the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the law are they're almost saying the same thing, but they're saying it in different terms.
Okay.
The AAP states it in terms of height and weight,
okay, and
the law does it by age.
All right.
So basically, the recommendations are that, as we kind of talked about earlier, we want infants rear-facing till at least 2 years of age or until they reach the highest weight and height recommendations for the seat. And then once they reach that upper limit, or 2 years of age, then you can switch them around to a forward-facing child seat with a 5-point harness. Up until they reach the highest weight and height recommendations for that seat.
Okay.
That typically will occur right around 4 years of age, and that's in keeping with the law. The law says that children have to be in some form of approved child safety seat up until 4 years of age. Okay, so that would include the rear-facing and then the forward-facing child seat.
Gotcha.
And then once they grow out of the forward-facing child seat, we want children in a booster seat.
Sure.
Until they reach the upper weight limits for that, or they reach 4 foot 9 inches.
Okay.
Okay, because that's typically when seat belts fit correctly in the vehicle.
Okay.
And again, the law states it a little bit differently, but it's kind of along the same lines. The law states that between 4 years of age and 8 years of age, children have to be in a booster seat.
Gotcha.
So it kind of they're parallel, but they kind of say it different ways.
Right.
Different ways.
So when can that child move to the glorious front seat? That's the biggest question.
We get this question a lot. The law doesn't specify. Okay. But what we recommend is that children ride in the rear seat for as long as possible, at least up until anybody under 12 years of age, under 13 years of age, we certainly want them in the rear seat. And then after that, it's not as vitally important. But again, the safest place to ride in a vehicle would be the rear seat.
Are there any types of exceptions to all these rules and that type of stuff?
Absolutely. One of the most notable exceptions would be if the child reaches 80 pounds and, like I said, 4 foot 9 inches before they hit that 8 years of age mark. Then they can get out of the booster seat and actually just be in the seatbelt of the vehicle. The magic number is that 4 foot 9 inches because that's typically when the seatbelt will fit properly across the collarbone and the shoulder area.
So you're in public service here. I mean, what are some of the resources that our community have at their disposal that they might not know they have?
There's quite a few actually. NHTSA, or the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They have a website, has a lot of good information on it. You can go on there. It lists all the recommendations that I just described today. They also have a search function where you can look for certified techs like myself, or fitting stations, that type of thing. There's also safekids.org. You can look on there, and that one lists, you can actually search for techs that way. And that'll give you not just the fitting stations, but that'll give you people, kind of like myself from a smaller department where, I don't work every day. I do it by appointment. So unfortunately, I'm not listed on the NHTSA website because I don't have a station where, I do it every day from 10 to 2 or something like that. But you can go on the safekids.org website, and you can search for me that way, and then my contact information is on there. You can call and make an appointment, that type of stuff.
So when you're looking at this whole thing, I mean, I'm sure you see all kinds of different things that go on throughout your job and your job experiences. What's your take-home message out of all this type of thing that we're seeing today, and what's the trend?
Basically, unfortunately, what happens and what we see a lot is that I think the statistic is about 73% of parents do not install child seats correctly, and that's a high number. That's really, really significant. That's not something that we want to see. So I would say the take-home message at this point is, if you're not sure, ask somebody. Ask somebody like myself. Make an appointment to come in. We can talk. We can give you information, point you in the right direction, help you install the seat correctly, and that's basically it. If you have a question, please don't just try to do it on your own and hope that it's correct. Make sure, you want to make sure, this is your child, you know what I mean? You want to make sure that it's correct.
And this is another thing that we both kind of came across as we went through. When you look at that service that's being provided, that's typically free of charge, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's something that we do. Residents of New Hanover can contact me, and I do it free of charge. Usually takes about 45 minutes. You call, make an appointment. You come in. I go over things like I give you a packet of information about what we just kind of described or what we talked about there, and go through, make sure the seat isn't recalled, because unfortunately, that's something you have to look at as well. Even if you buy a brand new seat, sometimes they can be recalled. It's maybe something small, maybe something big, but that's something that you want to check into. And then I'll help you install it in your vehicle and make sure it's correct before you leave. And then we can go over, other things like the turnaround times, like we discussed, and stuff like that.
I thought it was really interesting, just to bring it all to a close. That was when we were looking at some of this information. Some of the stats we seen was that there was about 40,000 fatalities each and every year from motor vehicle accidents. And some of the predictions is that if people wore seatbelts or had their children restrained at this point, you could reduce that number by half. Do you concur with that current trend?
That sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but a lot of times what we do see is people not restrained properly in a vehicle, or seatbelts save lives. Simple as that.
That's 20,000 lives a year. You think about that just by putting a seatbelt on.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Well, Officer Decker, Officer Dias, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate everything, all the information that you've given us, and we hope that you can come back in the future and give us an update on everything that you've done.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you much.
So again, Health Talk is a program that is basically built on one simple premise: to give the most latest information and evidence to our community so they can make the best health care decision that they're able to make. Good day and good health.
Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this edition of Health Talk. Today we're very honored to have Dr. Marie Kirshner here with us. She's a local dentist in the Boyertown area. She's been in practice for 15 years, and she graduated from Temple. She is currently the owner-operator of K&S Dental. And today we're here to talk about bruxism, which is clenching of the teeth. So, Dr. Kirshner, what is bruxism?
Bruxism is clenching of the teeth or grinding of the teeth. A lot of times it occurs at night for most people, but some people do it during the day while you're at work, or a lot of times it's due to stress.
Okay. What are the two types of bruxism? Because as we were doing some research on this, came across that there's primary and secondary, but there's also other types of bruxism. What are they?
So there's awake bruxism and night bruxism. And awake is during the day, and a lot of times people clench their teeth during the day while they're at work in stressful situations, and they'll have pain or muscle discomfort throughout the whole day, where people who clench at night will typically have the pain in the morning, and then it'll subside as the day goes on, as the muscles relax a little bit.
What is the prevalence of this type of condition? Because, like I said, as we were doing some of the research and that type of stuff, it's pretty amazing what we start to see with this and how much as it goes undiagnosed.
Yeah. You do see it in infants and children, that we'll have patients come in asking, my child grinds their teeth at night. I hear them. What should I do? And there's really, the kids will typically grow out of something like that. The adults, we do get a lot of people. It's probably about 30% of the adults have some type of either nighttime or daytime grinding of the teeth.
Okay. What are some of the signs and symptoms? Like, so, we know obvious, hearing some noises and that type of stuff. But what are some of the other signs and symptoms that are associated with bruxism?
A lot of times people come in complaining of headaches, and if you clench your teeth and you kind of put your hands on your head, you can feel that muscle really tighten. So a lot of times people think maybe it's a headache because of something else, but a lot of times it can be related to just clenching the teeth. And sometimes you'll see chipping of the teeth, and you'll see wear of the teeth. Some people can really wear their teeth down a lot. Sometimes you see some cavities related to it and different things like that.
So with the continual breaking down, I'm assuming that enamel gets worn away and those types of things. And as enamel gets worn away, then it exposes the teeth to further conditions. Is that correct?
Right. And then they become very sensitive. So then along with everything else, the teeth are very sensitive to drinking and eating and things like that.
Right. So when we're looking at it, do we know what causes it? Because this is, another interesting point. Why would people want to clench their teeth?
Well, people don't really want to clench their teeth, but I think it's just a reaction of our bodies to stressful situations. They don't really know exactly why people do that, but it might have to do with some kind of physiology in the body. But I think the main thing probably that they really know that people have the problem with is stress seems to be the biggest.
Does it affect more females versus males, or is it pretty equal across the board?
They say it's equal across the board. I think in our office we see more females with the condition.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wonder if more females notice the signs and symptoms as opposed to the males kind of think, oh, if I have a headache, it just,
no big deal.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting stats that we had run across as we were preparing for the show is that this goes undiagnosed in almost by 7 years, as I think is what it came down to. So that means that there's multiple visits for headaches, teeth problems, TMJ, and that type of stuff that are going to other professions that typically should be probably in your office seeing those types of things to help manage and moderate those cases. Would you find that normal in your own daily practice type of thing?
I think so. And we do see people come in. We have some patients who even have issues that the muscles get so tight that they can't even open their mouth to eat or anything like that, so they end up with a lot of muscle tightness from that. But we definitely see quite a few people.
Is there any association with like TMJ and bruxism? Do we know if there's any correlation with that, or are they two separate conditions?
It probably goes together a little bit. The TMJ is more the joint, but the muscles are involved in the TMJ, so you probably get some tightness and things with the muscle and everything.
Okay. What is the normal physiology of how the muscles of the mouth work in that type of thing? And are you normally, I know you're not normally supposed to be clenching, but how does it all kind of fit together?
So normally during the day, your teeth are apart for the most part. They're supposed to, they're not together a lot.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit with talking and things like that, but they probably touch about 30 times a day.
Right.
But when people clench or grind, it's a lot more than that, and that's when you have the issues with the wearing away of the teeth and the problems with the muscles.
Is the bruxism more rhythmic, or is it more like just a constant, you clench your teeth and you're, through that whole episode, or does it just kind of come and go?
It's more of a constant thing.
Okay.
It's more people are sitting at their desk and maybe, working on papers, and it's very stressful, so they're clenching their teeth while they're doing that. So it's more of a constant thing as opposed to
kind of
episodic,
a rhythmic type. Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody would present, or put it this way, if somebody is having issues or they know that their partner is having grinding issues type of thing at nighttime, if they would come to your office, what could they expect?
So we would do a complete medical history and make sure that there aren't any medical problems they're dealing with. And then we would do a dental examination and probably x-rays and take a look at their teeth and their gums and make sure everything's healthy that way. Take a look at the wear on their teeth. That's a good indicator. And talk to the patient and find out exactly what they're experiencing and try to figure out what the best treatment, if they are having problems with clenching or grinding, is for that person.
Is there any, we had talked about this before, like secondary bruxism. Is there any medications that people need to be concerned about on that end of it? Do you see any correlation between medications and even alcohol and all those other types of things?
Well, sometimes alcohol and Prozac and things you think would normally relax people. People tend to grind a little bit more with those kind of medications. So.
And that's very interesting because, like I said, we were talking about this before where things should be relaxing, but now that it goes to the opposite and gives you almost like a side effect of something.
Right.
Yeah. So what are the current treatments for Brux?
So in our office, what we typically do is if somebody's having some problems, usually we'll start off with either a night guard, something like this. I don't know if I can get it off here.
Oh, there you go.
So it fits right over the teeth like this, and then it helps to protect the teeth, and you usually wear that at night, and helps protect both of the teeth from wearing away. And then there's also something called an eye tie. These are a little bit tougher to see because they're smaller, but this actually fits on the bottom, and then it just holds the front teeth open. So I was at one course where they talked about if you put a pencil between your two front teeth and try to clench your teeth, you can't. Whereas with a regular night guard, some people will still grind Like they'll grind holes in these.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this sometimes the night guard isn't really the solution, because sometimes what'll happen is they'll actually continue to grind with something like this because they can put all their teeth together and still get pressure.
Sure.
So sometimes we can add a little bit onto the front of this, or we can just make a little device like this to fit on the bottom, and then you kind of get that separation where you can't generate the pressure just from your front teeth.
Gotcha.
With that.
Does one seem to be more effective than another?
It really depends on the patient.
Okay.
Some people, the night guard is enough with separating the teeth, or having a foreign object in between the teeth helps to kind of prevent the muscles from wanting to clench. But for other people, that doesn't seem to work. As I said, some people will grind all the way through a night guard like that. So by doing something like the night tie, they
stop the actual habit.
Right.
Are both of those custom?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so you would it's basically a custom fitting for that, and then that would go ahead and start to fit onto the patient's own teeth at that
Right.
point.
So we have the patient in, we take impressions, and then about 2 weeks we send the models to a lab, and then about 2 weeks later we get the device back, and then.
So does this cure bruxism, or how does this all work?
It doesn't really cure the bruxism. It just prevents the people from being able to clench their teeth.
Okay.
So
if you take these devices out, then the bruxism typically returns. Is that
a lot of
correct? times. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's more of a management system than, we'll say a cure system at that point.
Right.
So with that being said, is the mode of treatment more for the prevention of breakdown of teeth and trying to do that type of stuff, where you're trying not to get enamel wearing away and fractures and those types of things, and this offers more of a protection? Is that kind of how the treatment is managed?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yes, definitely, because anytime you grind the teeth, you're going to wear the enamel away, especially when it's enamel on the enamel. So, and we see people with really severe cases of that. So it definitely protects the teeth from damage.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when you think about everything, that we just have discussed, from, the etiology, it's unknown, to the management of the case, what's your take-home message for people that might be in this category?
That if they're having unexplained headaches and nothing really seems to help, or they see a lot of wear on their teeth, that it's really helpful and beneficial for their general health and for their teeth to maybe seek dental advice about treatment.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Dr. Karshner. It was a pleasure to have you on. This is Health Talk. The primary purpose of this is to educate our community on their options and what they can do with certain cases that might be presenting problems in their lives. This is Health Talk. Good day. Goodbye. Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this edition of Health Talk. Today we're very, very honored to have Elise Limpler on, who is a registered dietitian, talking about some certain things on cardiovascular disease and hypertension. Elise graduated from Westchester in 2006 and then completed her internship from the University of Maryland in 2007. Currently she's in private practice. So one of the words that we're seeing very recently right now is called medical nutritional therapy. What is medical nutritional therapy?
Medical nutrition therapy is an essential component of comprehensive health care.
Okay.
It is where a registered dietitian will work hand in hand with the treatment team.
Sure.
The first part of medical nutrition therapy is completing a nutrition assessment with the client.
Sure.
This nutrition assessment is a way to gather information and to help determine a nutrition diagnosis.
Sure.
A nutrition diagnosis is much different than a medical diagnosis.
Such as? What?
If someone has a diagnosis of high cholesterol, they may come to me trying to reduce their cholesterol.
Okay.
So the nutrition diagnosis that I may assess is that they have an excessive intake of saturated fat.
Okay, so you're looking at more of the root cause rather than just the diagnosis. Where's it coming from?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the next step would be to decrease their intake of saturated fat and increase their intake of healthy fats, which will hopefully lower cholesterol.
Okay.
The second part of medical nutrition therapy would be to continue to follow this patient along their way. This is called the monitoring and evaluation step.
Okay.
This is where we can continue to work with the treatment team and ensure that this patient is continuing to make appropriate lifestyle changes. This is all done using evidence-based practice.
Excellent. So one of the things that that we had discussed before is there's kind of two groups out there. There's nutritionists and there's registered dietitians. Can you explain what the difference is?
Sure. A registered dietitian has much more qualification than a nutritionist.
Okay.
A registered dietitian completes a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics.
Okay.
They have coursework that is extensive in the medical and science field.
Sure.
Then they go on to complete an internship. This
Sure.
is an accredited internship through the American Dietetic Association.
Sure.
After this internship, they will go on to sit for a registration examination, which is also through the American Dietetic Association. Once they complete this registration and pass their exam, they become a registered dietitian.
Sure.
However, there's a little bit more to it.
Okay.
They must continue to have continuing education credits so they could stay up to date on their information.
And then stay with, we'll say, valid license as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes, every dietitian can be licensed through their state.
Okay. So as we kind of go through this and we look at the role of diet in, we'll say, onset of disease and progression of disease, what is the connection between that?
Well, there's actually a study from the Journal of Epidemiology in 2009 that studied the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
And the Mediterranean diet is a diet that is high in fruits and vegetables. It's high in healthy fats such as nuts and seeds and fatty fish. It's high in whole grains. And people that followed the Mediterranean diet had a decreased prevalence of hypertension.
Okay.
And individuals who follow the American diet, which is laden in fat and high in sodium, had a higher prevalence of hypertension.
So we see a direct correlation between what people put in their bodies versus what type of diseases and, we'll say, signs and symptoms that they might encounter in their life?
Yes, Fred, we truly are what we eat. What we feed our body affects our cellular nature.
Absolutely. So what would a patient experience if they came into your clinic at this point, and how would their workup be? What would they feel? What would they go through?
The first thing I would do with the client is do a nutrition assessment.
Okay.
Being a dietitian, I would want to look at their diet.
Sure.
So if someone came in with high cholesterol, I would want to see, is their diet high in saturated fat? Is it high in sodium?
Sure.
Can they incorporate more healthy fats into their diet?
Sure.
So that's the first thing that I would look at.
Okay. So say, for instance, we have, Mrs. Smith who goes to her doctor, and he does all the appropriate blood work, and everything kind of comes back, and we see a cholesterol read of 300. We see triglycerides over 150. We see, we'll say, glucose fast starting to head into the 110, 115 range at this point. If that person presents to you, what do you do with that?
The first thing, again, is look at diet.
Sure.
You mentioned high blood sugars.
Yeah.
What I look at, is their intake of refined sugars very high?
Okay.
We know that an intake of high refined sugars and simple sugars can lead to an increased risk for elevated blood sugars.
Can you explain refined sugars? Because I don't think a lot of people understand what refined sugars are versus complex sugars.
Sure. Refined sugars are the white simple sugar.
Sure.
That's going to be your sugars you're going to find in candies and baked goods, anything that's been processed, your sugary cereals and so forth.
All right. So after you kind of go through their whole dietary intake and do an extensive research on that, Do you look at emotional needs and even sedentary needs and that type of stuff and habits that they have developed?
Yes. As Americans, we know that we can often be emotional eaters, that we tend to have a high-stress lifestyle and a busy lifestyle. So I would look for emotional eating, stress eating, and is this person the person that can never say no to the cookies and donuts around the office?
Absolutely. What about physical activity? How does that play into this thing?
Physical activity also plays a very important role in preventing and managing disease. So there's actually a study from the Archives of Internal Medicine from 2007 that studied activity. It was an activity of 5 days a week for 30 minutes a day. And what this shows is that individuals who engaged in this amount of activity had a 30% decrease in cardiovascular disease.
So just by simply becoming active, people can decrease their mortality rate by 30%?
Yes.
And that's simply amazing if you really step back and think about that, you know. As being a parent, you know, and I'm sure everybody has this type of question as well, there's this thing called BMI. And, you know, we see it coming back from schools and we see it, you know, from our kids and that type of stuff. Can you explain the relevance of BMI and how this all kind of ties together with health and nutrition and we'll say disease prevention?
Yes, BMI is body mass index. It's a measure of height for weight. So if you are this tall, it's an average range of what you should weigh. So a BMI from 25 to 30 indicates that someone is overweight. A BMI from 30 to 35 indicates that someone is obese. And beyond those numbers, there's different classes of morbid obesity. And being overweight or obese is going to put much more of a strain on your body and your heart, which increases your risk for disease.
So is there a certain BMI that we should be looking to achieve and go from that end of it?
A healthy BMI range is 18.5 to 25.
And so if you're in that range, the chances for disease becomes less. When you get over 25, it seems like it increases proportionally.
Absolutely.
Another buzzword out there is called lifestyle changes. And you know, is lifestyle changes a quick fix? Is that something that happens over time? Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Right. A lifestyle change is very different than a fad diet. It is not a quick fix. It is making long-term changes. So when I work with clients, when I'm working with them in an individual session, I'm not so much looking at how they're doing in that day in that session, but I'm more concerned at where they will be at a year from that day. Let me use an example. I was working with a client who came to me and she had to make some lifestyle changes. She came to me because she was on many different medications. She had high triglycerides, she had high cholesterol, and her blood sugar was becoming high. And so what she noticed is that she didn't want to be on these medications anymore. She wanted to change her life. And so some of the ways that she was able to change her life was looking at her diet. She decreased her intake of simple sugars such as juice. She increased her intake of healthy fats and plant sterols and stanols. She became more active, engaging in activity for about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And what we saw is by doing these small things, she was able to come off her medication for her triglycerides, her cholesterol markedly improved, and also her blood sugar was within normal limits.
Which is simply amazing because now all of a sudden you're making that patient proactive in their own health rather than being, we'll say, passive, relying on medications and that type of stuff. And I'm sure that you work hand in hand with the medical community to, as these patients are reducing their medications, as their, we'll say, their blood work is improving. Is that correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, here's something very interesting because one of the reasons I wanted to really kind of have this show done is because we know that cardiovascular disease is really called a silent killer. And we know that most of the diseases kind of run under the radar for a long period of time at this point. And then when they're detected late in the process, which makes you have to do all kinds of different treatments from medications to surgeries to all that type of stuff. One of the biggest things that we're seeing right now is that medical nutritional therapy is covered by insurance. Is that correct?
Yes, medical nutrition therapy is covered by many insurances. Some insurances will actually cover up to 100% of the cost for several visits a year.
So with that being come to light, when you have that information that it would be covered at this point, and you have a disease that's running under the radar, it's very, very important for early detection, I would have to assume. Is that correct?
That's very correct.
Absolutely. So when we're looking at this whole kind of thing and we're putting it all together with diet, nutrition, disease, and that type of stuff, Elise, what's your take-home message?
My take-home message would be making a lifestyle change could be very valuable. As I mentioned, we a lifestyle change is not a quick fix.
Sure.
But we don't develop some of the habits that we have overnight.
Sure.
We know that we didn't start dining out all the time overnight.
Sure.
And so really making some little changes can make a big difference.
Okay.
Some small changes that people can make would be just increasing the amount of fruits and vegetables they eat.
Okay.
They can increase their intake of fatty fish.
Sure.
They can increase their intake of whole grains.
Sure.
They can engage in activity 5 days a week for 30 minutes a day.
Sure.
And this doesn't have to be intense activity. It could be as much as walking.
Sure.
Taking the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
They can also maintain a BMI below 25.
Sure.
They could decrease the amount of alcohol consumption and cigarette smoking.
Sure.
And those 5 points right there show, a study showed that doing those 5 things can actually add 14 years onto someone's life.
So you're saying that if you do those five simple things, that 14 years of healthful living could be added to one's life. So if you're going from 78 to now 92 type of thing, that's what the people could be expecting to get out of it. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
So again, you know, I love the approach that you take. You take the approach of making people proactive and responsible and accountable for what they're doing. And so I think it's a wonderful, wonderful service that you're providing. So thank you, Elise. Okay. So again, this is Health Talk. Health Talk has really one mission when we're looking at it, and it's really to provide the best evidence of the day to inform our community to make the best decisions that they can make at this time. Elise, thank you very much for coming on to our show. We hope that you can come back in the future and give us an update on some of the good things that you're seeing in the community as well, and all the interactions that you're making, and all that type of thing as well.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
Absolutely. So again, good day and good health. Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this episode of Health Talk. Today we have Lisa Heverly on our show, and she is the founder of Operation Backpack, which is a nonprofit out of Pottstown. And we have her here because we want to bring some community awareness of what the nonprofit does and what our involvement in the community is. So Lisa, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So can you tell us what Operation Backpack is?
Yeah, Operation Backpack is a weekend food program for students in our local community.
Okay.
So right now we're in the Boyertown School District, Pottstown, Pottsgrove, and also Springford. And we pack into a backpack enough food to sustain that student for the weekend. So we give them dinner Friday night, breakfast, lunch, and dinner Saturday and Sunday, some snack items, water, and we pack all of that into a backpack, and then we work with the local school district to figure out which students would qualify to be in the program.
How long has it been in operation for?
Here in Pottstown has been in operation since the 2010-2000 school year, 2011 school year.
Almost 6 years then.
Yes.
And is there any other history, like on a national level, of Operation Backpack?
Yeah, actually, the reason why Operation Backpack got started in Pottstown was because there was an organization called True to Life Ministries, which was based in Texas, in the Houston area. And a friend of mine, it was her brother and sister-in-law that started this organization. And she knew that they were doing a program like Operation Backpack there.
Yeah.
So she called around to a couple of the schools in the Pottstown School District and asked them if a program like this would be a benefit to the students there.
Sure.
So at that point, I was working at that local school, and I became the coordinator, the person that ran the program at the school there.
And what is your current position then? So you went from coordinator to what are you now?
Yeah, so now I'm the founder and executive director of Operation Backpack. So in 2013, we were, before then, we were working with True to Life Ministries. We were under their umbrella.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, we actually separated and became our own entity here in Pottstown.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what are some of the statistics that that you're aware of, like that are in the local area that needs the service that you're trying to provide?
Right. In Pottstown, I think it was 2 years ago, there was some things that were done, a survey that was done, and in Pottstown alone, it was about 70% of the students qualified for free and reduced breakfast and lunch.
Okay.
So that's a huge number.
Absolutely.
That's a little overwhelming. And also, I did some research on some of the students that are considered homeless
Yes.
in all of those local communities that we're in. And Pottstown had about 80 students last year.
Okay.
Springford had, I think it was 15. Potts Grove had about 30. And I'm unsure of the number that Boyertown was at. But,
Sure.
yeah.
So when you're looking at that, what type of need do you see that's in our local community when we talk about hungry children, homeless children, children who live in poverty per se?
Yeah, I know like other people, I feel that as a child you shouldn't be hungry, especially here in our local community and in the United States. The students that we are helping are homeless or considered chronically hungry. So those are the students going home on the weekend, and they would not have food that would sustain them until Monday. So a lot of the students are the ones that are receiving the free and reduced breakfast and lunches at school. These are the students that, as a high schooler, they would be couch surfing.
Okay.
So going from, friend's home to friend's home.
Wow.
So that backpack would become their food pantry in a sense for the weekend. Everything that is put into the backpack does not need to be heated up. It doesn't have to be cooked.
Sure.
They're all pop-top, so if the student doesn't have electricity or water or a way of doing any of those things, making the items, it's not necessary. They can eat them right out of the containers.
What is I think we were looking at this before the show started, the poverty rate in Pennsylvania?
It's about 20%.
And how do we determine that? Do you have an idea how that kind of comes to?
I think if it's a family of four, if you make $30,000 or less, you're considered in the poverty level.
So then that puts you into the category of the reduced lunch then, is
Yes.
what happens? So in a lot of these cases then, a lot of these children are getting 1 or 2 meals per day, depending on what the school provides at this point. And then after the fact, then they're pretty much on their own, is that correct?
Right.
And so then the weekends become very challenging, I would have to say, for the students, and that's where you guys fill the gap by looking at. So how many backpacks and how many students did you service last year?
We served 154 students,
Okay.
and we sent home over 3,000 backpacks.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then when we broke it down a little bit further, it was 21,000 meals that we actually packed into the backpacks for a year. So that was from September till the beginning of June.
That's exceptional and just an amazing amount of energy that has gone into it that creates a positive change into our community. What are the goals of Operation Backpack? Is it to stay where you're currently at, or do you see that there's more need that is needed to be provided out into our community? Do we need to take it from 152 students to 200 students, or what's the we'll say the future of it?
Yeah, I'm totally open to see what God does with it. I've kind of taken it step by step. If a school approaches us, we talk with them, we see, how things would work in that community, whatever support can come up around, that area to support Operation Backpack. In turn, we would support the students there. Sure. So I'm totally open to growing. At this point, if we look at the districts that we're in,
yes.
we are open to 23 schools.
Okay.
Now, we're not in all of those
sure.
schools in every district, just because the need is different in each building. So we really felt like this year, making sure that we can sustain the students that we have in the program and the buildings that we offer Operation Backpack to, and then just kind of seeing next year what that's
sure.
going to look like. So we're always open to talking with other districts and
sure.
and seeing logistically if we can work things out.
Do you think that you're serving all the children in the, we'll say for example in the Pottstown area, if you're seeing 80 students in Pottstown, is there children you're turning away?
Yeah, we haven't turned anyone away.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah, we really feel strongly if there's a student in need, we will do what needs to happen to make sure that they are taken care of. And like I said, every building is different. Like I was just thinking of, a couple of years ago, there was a student at one of the local elementary schools, and there's a designated place in each school that our volunteers deliver the backpacks to for the staff at the school to hand them out. And all of a sudden, one of the staff members saw this little girl grab a bag and start taking off out of the building. And then they ran after her and brought her back in because she was not in the program. That backpack didn't, belong to her.
Right.
So the staff went into the principal's office, and the principal sat down with her and the little girl and just kind of started to talk a little bit about, why she took the backpack and things like that. And then came to discover that her parents actually had both lost their jobs. It was about 2 weeks now that they had been struggling with no food in the home and things like that. But this little girl knew that that backpack had food in it, and she could take it home and help her family out with it.
And how old was she?
I think she was in first grade.
Wow.
She could have been a second grader. I think she was 8 years old, so I don't remember the
And
grade.
to be, to be that aware of a situation at 8 years old, shouldn't even be on the thought of an 8-year-old.
Right.
It should be about, going out and playing and doing those types of things that, young 8-year-olds do.
Right.
And yet she's taking the initiative to, provide for her family at such a young age. And then you look at, the position that you have been in at this point to offer that service and that need and fill that need is just, I think, just again, very humbling and very amazing. And we're proud to have you part of our community. That is for sure. So when we're looking at everything that people can donate towards, okay, and when you look at this is a volunteer, a nonprofit. How can people help you? How can they donate to you guys? How can they get food to you guys? How does it all work for you?
Yeah, we have a food list that we base all of the items that we put into the backpacks, and that list includes like tuna to-go meals and complete meals, all things that, like we had stated before, that are already made. So those items can always be donated to us. We actually are located in Pottstown.
Okay.
Our address is 238 East High Street, Suite 103. They can go on our website.
Okay.
It's operationbackpack.org. And email me, of course,
Sure.
and we can see how they can get involved. Either donating food. We do have volunteer opportunities.
Okay.
Those are kind of few because amazingly we have a lot of volunteers that are awesome and very steadfast and help us out on a weekly basis. But sometimes there are openings.
Sure.
And then financial support, of course, is huge. Especially going into the school year, food is important, and financial support to make sure that we can sustain and take care of the students that we already have in the program.
Absolutely. And again, when you're looking at that, do you have any events or do you have any past stories of how, like events that you've done that raise money or raise awareness?
Yeah,
or any upcoming ones as well?
Yeah, actually we do. We have November 10th is our big fundraiser for the year. It's a dinner, and we have a silent auction and then dinner, and we talk about everything that has gone on with Operation Backpack throughout the year. Okay. And this year it's at the Sunnybrook Ballroom, which I'm really excited about.
Sure.
We've done it at another location in Limerick, but I'm really excited to bring it back to Pottstown.
Sure.
Because Pottstown's very dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So that is our fundraiser for the year, and it's our biggest event that we have.
So typically every November you're doing something as a big fundraising event?
Yes,
type of
every
thing?
November we have the dinner.
That's excellent. So Lisa, when we think about everything that we just talked about, from taking the initiative in our community to making sure that our community is, well taken care of, our children are taken care of, what is the take-home message that you want our community to know about what you guys do, how you guys operate, and where you're going?
Yeah. For me, just another quick story just comes to mind, and I feel like that really wraps in the heart of Operation Backpack and what we hope to achieve. We actually had a volunteer orientation a couple weeks ago, and we have all the volunteers come out, and we introduce them to Operation Backpack. Some have been there before, some haven't.
Sure.
And we asked them, so how did you find out about Operation Backpack, and why did you want to get involved? And this mom and daughter came in a little late as we were talking. So then we just got started, and I just asked everyone to introduce themselves. And the mom says, her name, and then she introduces her daughter, and she said, a couple years ago, my daughter actually used to receive a backpack from Operation Backpack.
Wow.
And she just said that she was just really glad that and wanted her daughter to know how it works. Operation Backpack was there to help them in a time, and now they can come and to serve Operation Backpack, and in turn serve the community and other students that could really benefit and get the help from Operation Backpack.
Absolutely.
So for me, that was a giant, that was full circle of the purpose and the understanding of what Operation Backpack is about, and what we hope to communicate to the community and to the students that receive our backpack.
I think it's an amazing thing what you guys are doing and how you guys have continued to operate. Your perseverance, moving to the new locations, those type of things. It's really impressive when you stand from the outside and look on the inside. And so I'm proud to know you and proud to be associated with Operation Backpack as well. So
thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. So again, this is Health Talk, and again, this is Operation Backpack. In our community, we all have a platform to stand upon, and we want to make sure that we're doing our best in our community to make sure that nobody is left behind. So good day and good health. Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this episode of Health Talk. Today we have a topic that we're going to be exploring here, and we have Dr. Fleischer from Brookside Family Practice with us. She is an expert in the component of what we're looking to discuss here, which is diabetes today. And it's a major concern from healthcare to cost to health in general at this point. And what we wanted to do is start to give some light and some public information about how we can look to recognize some different things on diabetes, and then most importantly, how to prevent things. So, welcome, Dr. Fleischer.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So the biggest question we have right now is there's a couple different things with diabetes. There's a couple different types. What is diabetes?
So, pretty simply said, diabetes is a metabolic disorder, which is a result of insulin resistance in most patients. And in some patients, it's about decreased insulin output from our pancreas.
Okay.
The result of that is an elevation in your blood sugars.
Okay. So when you're looking at diabetes and that type of stuff, and you hear there's some type 1, type 2, even possibly type 3 now, gestational, what are some differences between them?
So in the type 1 diabetic, that used to be called juvenile onset.
Yes.
It's where your pancreas doesn't make enough insulin or any insulin to bring those sugars under control.
Okay.
The type 2, formerly known as adult onset,
right,
is a true insulin resistance. We have it. We actually have too much of it.
Okay.
And it causes the sequelae of events of inflammation and affecting of every organ system.
Sure.
We actually call it type 2 now because we're seeing children as young as the age of 9 being diagnosed with diabetes.
So it's no longer adult onset then?
Correct.
Okay. So maybe we should just kind of maybe explain a little bit of the physiology. I mean, so when we're talking about when somebody takes some food in, what kind of happens? Does it disappear into a black hole, or how does this insulin kind of factor into it?
So it depends on the type of food that you're eating.
Yeah.
Most of the time we ingest any kind of meal, it gets broken down into glucose.
Okay.
If you have a certain amount of glucose spike in the blood, depending on the quality of that sugar, the insulin will go up to help bring that sugar back down again.
Okay.
The effect that we want to see is one where the sugar goes up a little, the insulin goes up a little, they both come down to normal.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a ripple effect throughout the day
Okay.
if you feed yourself every 3 to 4 hours.
So what's the primary reason for glucose? What does it do?
Glucose gives us all the energy that we need into our cells to function.
So if we don't have insulin to bring that in, hence we...
Well, if we don't have enough insulin to bring it up into the liver and into the muscles and out of the bloodstream, it's going to sit in the blood.
Okay.
That causes an inflammatory cascade, and it affects, again, almost every organ system.
Okay. So what is some of the signs and symptoms associated with diabetes?
So for many people, especially the type 2 population, they actually may not have any symptoms, which is a little bit scary when you think about it. But for many, it can be things like weight loss, fatigue, excessive thirst, excessive hunger, excessive urination. Sometimes you can have numbness and tingling, and for men, they can present with erectile dysfunction.
So lots of different things is affecting many different systems at that point.
Correct.
Do we have any idea what the prevalence is on like a national average and maybe even on a state level? What do you actually see in your office?
So in the office, I'd say about 75% of my patients have some form of diabetes, whether it's pre-diabetes or diabetes proper. Nationally, it's about 175 million people.
Wow.
And in the state of Pennsylvania, I believe the most recent data was about 35% were either pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Right. So when we're looking at, some of the stats that we're looking at some of the different things that the world is projecting. They're saying, that we can go from 171 million to possibly 366 million within a short 15 years at this point. Is that pre-diabetic group that you're looking at, and how those numbers would be kind of determined at this point?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if a patient presents to your office and they come in with some itchiness between the fingers or some pins and needles into the hands, and you're thinking diabetes, what's the standard workup and what do you typically do with that patient? What can they expect?
At first, you start with the history. You ask them a little bit more about what they've been doing in their lifestyle, how long have the symptoms been going on.
Sure.
You look for their family history because there's been some link in the genetics, although it's not all inclusive.
Sure.
And then you do a physical exam. Usually the physical does not show us a lot.
Okay.
There's some misconceptions about that the public thinks that we're going to see something in them. And then it's as simple as a blood test.
Oh, okay.
Most of those blood tests we can do right in our office, so people don't even have to go to the lab to get tested.
Yeah. Okay. And what are you specifically looking for in those blood tests? I mean, is there specific blood tests that you're looking for that give you direction on how that case would be managed?
So the first thing we'll do is a sugar level.
Okay.
If their sugar is fasting, it has a certain goal. If they're not fasting, it has a different goal. Because obviously if you're not fasting, the sugar should be a little bit higher because it's in your blood after you've eaten.
Right.
We also do a marker called a hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of how high your sugars have been in the last 3 months.
Okay.
So a lot of times my patients will come in saying, I've been behaving, here's my sugar log.
Right.
But behaving for a week and showing me a week's worth of numbers is not an actual representation of what the last 3 months have been like.
Okay. So is A1C a better indicator of the health of that patient rather than, we'll say, just a regular glucose test?
Yes.
Okay. So when you hear many people who are diabetic and they're saying that they're following the A1C level at this point, what is a standard number that you would like to see that in, and what type of number do you see that with most diabetics?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So the diagnosis of diabetes comes at 6.5.
Okay.
We'd like to see everybody under 5.7.
Okay.
So the pre-diabetic population is the one at real high risk that if we don't change what we're doing now, they're going to turn into those 6.5.
Is there a range that you're looking at? Is that like 5 and above, did you say?
About 5.7.
Okay, 5.7.
And above to 6.4.
Okay.
And so I've seen patients as high as 12 and 13. And, that's the poorly controlled. They're usually a lot older patients.
Sure.
But the average, I would say, is somewhere between, 6.5 and 9 is that population that we're seeing pretty frequently in the office.
Sure. It's very interesting. So when we talk about like diabetes and that type of stuff, and you're talking about how we can like internally look at them and see what their health is at this time. I mean, is there any way to think about even prevention? Because there's really no cure for diabetes. Is that correct?
Well, there is a cure for type 2 and for prediabetes.
Okay.
And there's some other diabetes. There's the gestational that you mentioned with pregnancy. But the treatment is also the prevention. Prevention is maintaining a healthy body weight, eating 6 small, low glycemic meals a day, having a regular activity, getting good sleep, which is important to our weight control. There are medications that treatment-wise, there's medications we can use, but often the prevention revolves around lifestyle choices that we're making on a daily basis.
Okay, so we know that this in the state of Pennsylvania, I think, costs like $250 billion, or I'm sorry, that's on the national level, $250 billion a year. I think on the state level, it's somewhere around $13 billion a year for a diabetic patient. So with that being taken into consideration, with prevention, we could eliminate a lot of those costs?
Significantly, if not remove them completely.
So we need to expand on that. So what is prevention then? I mean, I know you kind of just gave some little bullet points there, but what would you recommend?
So, I think the Medical Society has the sick care in mind, meaning somebody comes in with a high sugar and is diagnosed with diabetes, they throw them on a pill or a prescription, which doesn't treat the underlying cause. It treats the symptom, which is high sugar.
Right.
I also work as a certified health coach.
Okay.
And as a health coach, I help people treat the underlying cause, which is get down that insulin resistance.
Sure.
So we educate people on fueling their bodies throughout the day, kind of like adding kindling to a fireplace to keep it roaring all day long.
Right.
Eating small 6 meals a day is going to keep their sugars balanced.
Sure.
Activity level, our society is much less active than it ever used to be. We're doing everything automated and by robotics. So maintaining more activity, and it doesn't have to be aggressive activity, even 15 to 30 minutes of daily movement will help maintain the blood sugar.
Sure.
Getting good sleep, of course, is also very important to controlling our weight, which is related to the sugar.
So when you're looking at, expanding it a little bit even into what people are eating at this time, I know you're saying given 30 minutes of exercise. Is there a pattern that people should be thinking when you say 6 small meals a day? Should that be protein and carbohydrates balanced at each meal? Should that be, starting to think about whole food, whole grains versus, refined pastas, those type of things?
Yeah, in fact, when we look at the data, the diabetes incidence went up from 1980 to 2014 fourfold.
Okay.
And most of this correlates directly to the introduction of high fructose corn syrup.
Okay.
So we have easy access to food. The food is very cheap in terms of dollars. It's also cheap in its nutritional value.
Okay.
So everything's supersized, and now we're becoming supersized. And so if we can eat what we consider a low glycemic, which again is something that doesn't let the insulin level spike high, all right? So the whole grain pastas, your low carbohydrate type vegetables and fruits.
Sure.
And you pair it with a protein, which takes longer to break down into glucose.
Sure.
It will maintain that steady state of your sugar level in your blood.
Okay.
Most of the meals, especially breakfast, is the most important meal of the day.
Interesting.
So if anybody's going to make one change after watching this, they should eat breakfast within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up.
How about that?
If they don't eat breakfast within that time frame, their sugar will start out high and will stay high all day long.
Do you have any familiarity with the Mediterranean diet? That sounds what you're explaining is, it sounds like, a little bit of fish, some good oils, those types of things, fruits and vegetables and that type of stuff. And then bringing into more of the whole grains per se rather than the refined. Sounds similar to what they have been recommending as well.
Yep. I think the two things are the quality of the food you're bringing in. So your protein is going to be your fish, your egg, your meat products mostly. That's going to be anywhere from 4 to 7 ounces of a protein in your largest meal of the day. Your vegetables are going to be the next biggest portion of your intake.
Gotcha.
And then you're going to do a smaller carbohydrate and not always have a carbohydrate.
Absolutely.
As long as we balance your carbohydrate intake with a protein, again, you're going to see a balance in the sugar level.
So we're coming back to like our signs and symptoms we were talking about, some different things, pins and needles into the hands, excessive peeing, excessive thirst and that type of thing. If somebody chooses to ignore that and chooses not to do any treatment with it, whether it's prevention or, we'll say behavior modification or medications at this point, are there consequences to that?
So there's significant consequences. In fact, in the United States, diabetes is the #1 cause of blindness, renal failure, and amputations.
Wow.
It also has a significant increase of cardiovascular disease or coronary artery disease, which leads to heart attacks and to stroke.
Wow. So now you're talking about a couple of the #1 killers in America that it has maybe its hand in as well.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing how, how brutal this disease can be, but also how preventable it can be as well. Mm-hmm. So it sounds almost like it's a behavior modification type of disease that we have to think about as well. So with all that being said, everything that we've been giving to, I want to come back to one other point, and it goes back to the physiology again. What happens to the sugar when it's free-floating? What does it do to nerves?
It actually affects the function of those areas. It causes more inflammation.
Okay.
And so the nerve endings start to die off, and that's when people start to get numbness and tingling,
Gotcha.
which eventually leads to no feeling.
Wow.
And that's why people, their diabetic has to go see their foot doctor, and they think it's not that important. But if you can't feel the bottom of your foot and you step on something, you increase your risk of infection.
Gotcha.
Which then eventually, completely untreated or ignored, leads to the amputations.
Okay. So with all the information that we've given, and all the public health that you've just kind of, we'll say, shed some light on, what's your take-home message out of all this?
I think we can completely change the outcome of what diabetes is in this country. Mm-hmm. We need to take control of our own health. Mm-hmm. We need to think about not treating a disease, but creating health moving forward and having a goal in mind. Mm-hmm. We need to educate more physicians about how creating health is the new model as opposed to reacting to a disease state. Mm. There's a cause to this.
Sure.
It's our lifestyle. It's maintaining healthy habits on a regular basis within a supportive environment that understands this.
Sure.
To have education, support, guidance, and a structure of how people can do this kind of on their own without having to use prescriptions that are, of course, extremely costly and have many side effects.
Sure. And so again, as we look at that, and you're just saying, it astounds me as we did this research here and we're preparing for the show, how preventable it is. Mm-hmm. That's the most thing that I think that has stuck out to me the most as we started preparing for this episode as well. So Dr. Fleischer, I want to thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. I think that, as we start to make this type of information more prevalent and people have a better understanding, you start to impact people's lives that become secondary to none.
Significantly so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, again, this has been an episode of Health Talk. Good day and good health.